sound comes first, slow, rhythmic, like the cracking of frost under bare feet. You open your eyes to a sky the color of smoke. It's December 1348, and Christmas is dead. You were promised carols and candles, warmth and laughter spilling from the chapel doors. Instead, you find silence, a cathedral of rot. The streets of Florence are draped in black cloth, the air heavy with incense and something worse, the sweet copper scent of decay. Every window bears a painted cross. Every door has been nailed shut. The priests call it the season of mercy. But you've seen the pits, you know better. Mercy doesn't stink of burnt flesh. You walk past what used to be a marketplace, stalls stripped bare, the wooden counters turned into makeshift biers. The only sound is the tolling of bells, echoing through the fog like a heartbeat. They ring not for mass, but for the count of the dead. Somewhere in the distance, a group of children sing a carol. Their voices are thin, spectral. You turn toward them, but there are no children there. Only a row of mannequins, stuffed with straw, dressed in tattered robes crowned with holly. Each one painted with a smile. They call this ritual the Dance of Christmas. The villagers believe it keeps the plague away. You watch as a hooded figure lights a torch and sets one of the mannequins aflame. The smile burns first. You should turn away. You should pray. But something inside you stirs. Curiosity or hunger or memory. You've seen this before, not here, not now, but somewhere buried deep in your mind. A city of snow. A man made of bones. A song that wasn't meant for the living. The fire crackles, consuming the effigies one by one, and for a brief impossible moment, you hear sleigh bells. They sound wrong. Not cheerful jingles, but metal scraping bone. Each ring carries the echo of chains dragging through the ashes of what once was holy. And then from the smoke a shape emerges. Too tall, too thin, draped in tattered velvet. Its skull gleams like polished ivory beneath the cowl. It moves like a puppet carved by grief itself. You can't breathe. You can't move. But it bows to you. Slow, deliberate, regal. Christmas, it whispers, voice like frost, has always been mine. If this feels too real, subscribe before it gets worse. The air shivers, the smoke twists. And then it speaks again, not in words but in the low hum of winter itself. You take a step back. The figure mirrors you, its jaw clattering softly as though amused. Around it, snow begins to fall, black snow made of ash and soot. Each flake burns when it touches your skin. You remember what the monks whispered in the crypts. The plague is no disease of the body. It is a visitation. And perhaps this thing standing before you, this skeletal parody of St. Nicholas, is proof. Its shadow stretches down the street like spilled ink. It moves past the burning mannequins, past the boarded-up doors, and every flame bends toward it, bowing. Even fire knows its master. Who are you? You ask. The question sounds absurd in this world where no answers are kind. Its grin widens, bone stretching against bone. I am remembrance, it says, the part of joy that learned how to rot. You see it clearer now. The creature is stitched together. Pieces of a bishop's robe, a jester's mask, a gravedigger's gloves. A patchwork saint born from the debris of Christmas. Behind it, figures begin to emerge from the fog. Men, women, children, all masked, all silent. Each one carries a candle made from human tallow. They form a slow procession down the cobblestones, their shadows swaying like marionettes. This isn't celebration. It's choreography. A funeral disguised as a festival. One of them steps closer, a woman with eyes painted shut. She places something in your hand, a small wooden toy carved into the shape of a reindeer. Its legs are splintered, its antlers cracked. But on its underside, someone has etched a message. He comes where joy once lived. Your heart lurches. You look up, but the woman is gone. Only her candle remains, flickering beside your feet. The skeletal saint lifts a hand. The crowd kneels. Do you see now? It whispers, voice thick with centuries of dust. This was the first Christmas, not in Bethlehem, but in plague and mourning. They called it a feast of birth, but it was always about death, dressing it up, giving it tinsel and song so it wouldn't look you in the eye. Its hand hovers inches from your chest, bony fingers curling like hooks. You feel the air leave your lungs as though it's being pulled out by invisible strings. Your vision tunnels. Bells ring again, faster now, wild, discordant. And in the ringing you hear it, the melody of The Nightmare Before Christmas, not written by Danny Elfman, not composed in a studio, but born right here, in the smoke and ruin of 1348. The first carol of the dead. The last thing you see before the world goes black is the creature's smile. And in it, your own reflection, centuries older, crowned with holly and ash. When you wake, the world smells of wax and vinegar. A dim candle burns beside you, its flame shivering against the damp stone walls. You're in a monastery, or what's left of one. The ceiling arches above you like a ribcage. The air is thick with the echoes of prayers long forgotten. You sit up slowly, your chest aching as if frost has settled inside your lungs. Your clothes are clean, but not your own. They smell faintly of smoke, the same smoke from the burning effigies. Someone has written on the wall beside your cot. 3 words, scratched into the plaster with trembling hands. Do not sing. The words seem absurd in their simplicity, but the fear behind them is tangible, pulsing. You reach out and trace the letters. They flake like old scabs. Outside, a wind howls through the cloisters, dragging with it the faint sound of laughter. Not joyful, manic, like children pretending to be alive. You step into the corridor. Rows of candles line the stone path, leading deeper into the abbey's heart. Each flame leans toward the same direction, as if drawn by something unseen. You follow them. At the far end, a massive wooden door stands slightly ajar. From within comes a rhythm, the dull thud of a drum. You push it open. Inside, monks kneel in a circle, their faces hidden by white hoods. In the center lies a small coffin, carved from black oak and wrapped in rosary chains. They're not chanting prayers, they're humming a tune. You know that tune. The same melody that whispered through the fog the night before, the carol of the dead. A monk notices you and freezes. The hum dies instantly, leaving only the crackle of wax. He rises slowly and pulls back his hood. His face is pale, almost translucent, veins tracing blue beneath thin skin. But it's his eyes that root you in place. They're pure black, like ink poured into glass. You heard it, didn't you? He says softly. The Christmas song. You nod, unable to speak. His smile is sad, almost tender. It was never meant for the living. We sing it to keep them calm, the ones beneath the city, the ones who wait. You step closer to the coffin. A smell seeps through the cracks, something metallic, sweet, wrong. What's in there? You whisper. The monk hesitates. Then he answers, voice trembling. Hope. He opens the coffin. Inside is not a corpse, but a mask. Carved of bone, painted in crimson and gold, fashioned into the likeness of a skull with a grin too wide to be human. It's the same face you saw in the fog, and beneath it, a parchment covered in music notes. The first written version of the melody, dated December 25th, 1348. The notes are shaped like tiny coffins. The monk reaches for your hand. His grip is ice. They said Christmas was born in joy, he whispers, but it was born here, to remind us of what we lost. Every year we celebrate so we don't forget. Every carol is a prayer that the dead stay sleeping. The drum starts again, but now it beats from beneath the floor. The stone vibrates under your feet, and from below, something begins to hum along. The vibration builds, subtle at first, then violent enough to rattle the candles off their stands. The flames gutter out, plunging the chamber into near darkness. Only the glow from the coffin remains, a dull crimson bleeding through the cracks. You stumble back. The monk doesn't move. He's whispering something under his breath, words in a language older than Latin. Each syllable crawls under your skin like ice water. The floor splits. A narrow seam appears between the stones, widening as the drumbeat rises. From below, a gust of air bursts upward, dry, foul, ancient. The monk spreads his arms as if in worship. "They're waking," he murmurs. "The choir that sang the first Christmas. You should run." But your body refuses to obey. The red light spills brighter now, casting jagged shadows across the walls. You peer into the gap and see movement. Hands, dozens of them, pale and skeletal, clawing toward the surface. Fingers tipped with blackened nails, still clutching rosaries that crumble to dust. The monk begins to hum again, the same melody, the one that shouldn't exist. It fills the air like smoke, wrapping around you, thick and suffocating. Your heart pounds in rhythm with the drum. Then, a voice joins the song. Not human, not singular. It's a chorus 100 strong, singing in perfect dissonance. You watch, frozen, as the dead rise from beneath the monastery floor. Their mouths open not in screams, but in harmony. Each note a thread pulling the darkness tighter around you. Their robes still bear traces of red and green, the colors of Christmas, now faded, mottled with centuries of rot. They sway together like marionettes, the sound of their singing shaking dust from the vaulted ceiling. And then you realize what they're doing. They're not singing to you, they're singing through you. Every breath you take becomes part of their melody. Your voice trembles out of your throat, unbidden, blending into theirs. You hear the monk sobbing beside you, still humming, still praying. "It's not celebration," he gasps. "It's containment." The red glow pulses faster, synced with the rhythm of the song. Symbols begin to burn into the stone, circles, crosses, and something that looks disturbingly like a snowflake made of bones. Then the coffin slams shut. The sound cuts through everything. The song dies mid-note. Silence falls like snowfall. The dead collapse, their bones scattering across the floor. The light fades. Only your own ragged breathing remains. When you look for the monk, he's gone, leaving only his robe, folded neatly, and a single phrase carved into the coffin lid. "When joy returns, so will we." You stumble out of the chamber, your ears ringing. The world outside is snowing again, white this time. But as each flake lands on your skin, it melts into streaks of red. Somewhere behind you, the bells begin to toll, not in mourning, not in celebration, in warning. And beneath their sound, so faint it might be your imagination, a familiar whisper. "Christmas has always been mine." The road out of the monastery is nothing but mud and bone dust. You walk for hours beneath a sky that refuses to brighten. Every mile feels like walking backward through time. The countryside is unrecognizable, hills stripped bare, villages abandoned, rivers running black with rot. The plague has devoured everything except silence. And yet, as you move farther from the abbey, the silence fractures. A faint melody drifts through the fog. You freeze. It's the same tune, the same impossible carol. You follow it, driven by a mix of terror and curiosity that you can't name. It leads you to a valley lined with wooden stakes, each crowned with a crude wreath. The smell hits you next. Burned pine, spoiled wine, and decay. At the center of the valley stands a small town, surrounded by snow-covered graves. A banner flaps weakly over its gate. Benedicta Nativitas, Blessed Birth. But someone has crossed out the last word and scrawled another beneath it. Burial. You step inside. The streets are empty except for the crows. They perch on rooftops, picking at garlands of dried fruit and holly strung like entrails between buildings. A single church bell rings, but offbeat, as if the ringer is drunk or dead. And then you see them. Villagers, walking in a slow procession, faces hidden behind masks carved from bark and bone. Each carries a candle made of animal fat, their flames barely holding against the wind. They hum as they walk, low, hypnotic, reverent. The same song again. One of them breaks formation and approaches you. Her mask is painted red, a crude depiction of a smile stretching from cheek to cheek. Without speaking, she presses something into your hand, a small loaf of bread shaped like a skull. "Eat," she whispers, "or the cold will remember you." You shake your head, trying to ask who she is, what they're doing, but she's already rejoining the line. The procession continues toward the church, where a bonfire burns in front of a wooden cross draped in ivy. A choir waits at the doors, children this time dressed in white. They begin to sing, and it's beautiful, heartbreakingly so, until you listen closely. The words aren't Latin prayers, they're names. Hundreds of them sung in perfect rhythm. Each name ends with the same refrain. Remember the ones who kept Christmas alive. As the fire roars, the townsfolk cast gifts into the flames, dolls, coins, dried herbs, and bones wrapped in silk. A ritual of offering, a sacrifice disguised as celebration. You move closer to the blaze, hypnotized by its glow. Inside the fire, the wood crackles and folds, revealing something beneath it. A shape, metal, ornate. A skeletal figure bound by chains, its ribcage stuffed with holly and snow. Someone painted its skull with gold. It's him, the saint from the monastery. The villagers kneel. The song swells. You feel your pulse synchronize with their melody, the air around you thickening like syrup. Every breath tastes of iron and ash. And then from within the fire a voice hums back. The ground shakes. The flames twist into the outline of a tall, slender figure. He steps forward, smoke curling around him like a cloak. The same grin, the same hollow eyes. But now his voice sounds almost gentle. Did you think joy could survive without me? You try to run, but the villagers turn toward you, masks smiling in unison. Welcome home, they whisper. The air thickens with the smell of pine and burning fat. The villagers close in, their wax candles dripping molten trails that sizzle when they hit the snow. You stumble back, but they form a circle around you, not violent, not hostile, reverent. The skeletal figure steps out from the flames. His cloak of smoke unfurls across the ground like spilled ink. Everywhere it touches, the snow turns black. You expect the villagers to scream, to flee, but instead they kneel deeper, pressing their foreheads to the ground. The figure looks down at them with something that might almost be pride. Do you remember me now? It asks. The voice cuts through the cold like a blade wrapped in silk. It's familiar, too familiar. You know that tone. You've heard it before, whispered in the half-sleep between dream and fever. I don't, you begin. But your throat tightens. The words die inside you like embers in snow. The figure tilts its head. Look closer. Its hand rises, skeletal fingers tracing a symbol in the air. The flames flicker, shifting from orange to deep blue. Shadows dance across your face, and in that light you see it, a reflection hovering between you and him, a mirror made of smoke. In it, you're not yourself. Your skin is pale, your eyes hollow, your mouth curled into that same impossible grin. You are him. The villagers begin to chant. Saint Nicholas, keeper of the hollow feast, the one who brings warmth to the cold. The name sounds wrong, twisted, older than the one you knew. A corruption of something sacred. You shake your head violently. I'm not... But the figure cuts you off, voice low, amused. You were. Once. Before the world forgot what Christmas truly was. He circles you like a shadow, the snow crunching under his weightless steps. In the year the plague began, they begged for hope. They prayed for a miracle. And you gave them one. A holiday to keep them from seeing what was really happening. He gestures toward the villagers. This, all of this. The songs, the masks, the fire. They are echoes of your mercy. You built this ritual so they would smile through their own extinction. The words land heavy in the frozen air. You stagger back, memories flashing like lightning. The monastery bells, the carved mask, the laughter of dying children turned into carols. It all fits. Too perfectly. I tried to save them, you whisper. The figure leans in, its hollow grin inches from your face. And you did. For one night. Every year. He straightens, lifting his hands toward the dark sky. The villagers follow, voices rising into the ancient hymn. The same song, now deafening. The clouds tear open, snow falling harder, each flake glowing faintly red. The sound builds, vibrating through your bones, until you can't tell where your voice ends and theirs begin. You feel something inside you crack, a dam bursting open. The cold vanishes, the world spins, and for a moment, you're not human. You're the embodiment of every winter that ever mourned the dead, the father of grief wrapped in tinsel, the saint of ashes and memory. The figure bows to you as a subject to his king. "Welcome back," he murmurs. "The world is cold again. It remembers you." The snow around you turns black, the flames dim, and from somewhere deep within the valley, a child begins to sing the first Christmas carol, a lullaby for the end of the world. The child's voice cuts through the storm, high, pure, and ancient. Each note feels like a needle stitching together the seam between life and death. You turn toward the sound. A small figure stands at the edge of the firelight, clutching a candle taller than herself. Her eyes are milk white. Her breath fogs the air in slow, measured rhythm. She sings without fear, without trembling, and every time she exhales, the snow around her melts. The villagers lower their heads. The skeletal saint kneels. Even the wind seems to pause. The girl looks straight at you. "Do you know why they called it Christmas?" she asks. Her voice doesn't belong to a child. It's layered, as though 100 forgotten tongues speak through her. You shake your head slowly. She smiles, a small, solemn curve of lips. Because it was the Mass for the Christ of death, the one who came when the other refused. The words chill you deeper than the winter ever could. She steps closer, her bare feet leaving steaming prints in the snow. When the world was drowning in sickness, the priest sang for salvation. But heaven was silent, so the people turned to the grave. You glance at the skeletal figure. It bows its skull, unashamed. "They built a festival," the girl continues, "a mirror of joy to keep the shadows pleased. They hung garlands, not for beauty, but to disguise the scent of rot. They baked sweet breads to mask the taste of burning flesh. They sang because silence made the dying louder. Her candle flickers, the flame blue as a saint's halo. You made it so they would forget the screams." Your chest tightens. Images surge behind your eyes, not memories, but hauntings. 1,000 Christmas feasts over centuries, tables dressed in gold, laughter echoing above the sound of soil being shoveled over graves. Generations celebrating, never realizing they were honoring the plague that birthed the holiday itself. The skeletal saint rises. "The world mistook mourning for joy," he says, "and now it cannot tell the difference." The villagers begin to hum again, the melody low, patient, pulsing. It doesn't sound like music anymore. It sounds like breath. The girl turns her candle toward you. Its flame stretches, elongating like a ribbon of light, reaching for your chest. "This is your gift," she whispers. "The warmth you gave them. Take it back. You want to refuse. You want to run. But the moment the flame touches you, your body convulses. Every winter you've ever lived through floods your veins. The chill, the stillness, the peace of falling snow. And beneath it all, the silence of the dead who never stopped singing. You collapse to your knees. The villagers chant your name, not your mortal one, but the one you had before language. The sky opens wider, and the snow turns to ash again. When you look up, your reflection in the child's eyes is no longer human. Your face is pale and perfect. Your grin is carved. The candlelight burns inside your chest like a second heart. And for the first time you feel it, the terrible serenity of belonging. The girl kneels before you, candle trembling in her hands. "Will you bless us, Father of Frost?" she asks. You reach out, touching her forehead with a hand that's no longer yours. The cold transfers instantly. She exhales, smiling as ice crystallizes on her lips. Around you, the villagers fall silent, waiting. You rise taller than before. The skeletal saint bows low, and somewhere in the distance the bells begin again, slow, reverent, endless. The world has remembered its true holiday. The bells toll across the valley like thunder rolling through bone. Each strike feels heavier than sound, more like memory vibrating through the ground. You stand beneath the falling ash, now indistinguishable from snow, and watch the villagers kneel. Your breath crystallizes into clouds shaped like wings. The skeletal saint stands beside you, silent, deferential, a shadow of your former self. He does not speak again. He doesn't need to. The air hums with obedience. The child still kneels before you, candle guttering in her hands. Its wax has run down her wrists, fusing her fingers into a single shape of devotion. You reach down and touch her shoulder. When you speak, your voice isn't yours anymore. It carries the echo of wind over graveyards, the hush before snowfall, the sigh of plague victims dreaming of warmth. Sleep, you whisper, and she does, instantly. The villagers follow, one by one, collapsing gently into the snow as if obeying a lullaby. The fire dims. The song fades. You walk through them, bodies curled in silent worship, and realize something terrible. They're not dead. They're waiting for next year. The skeletal saint follows behind you, dragging his chain of silver bells. Each chime leaves ripples in the snow, as though time itself shivers at the sound. How long will they sleep, you ask? He glances toward the horizon. As long as the world forgets, he replies, and when they remember joy, they'll wake again. You begin walking, through the forest of withered pines, through abandoned villages where ribbons of red still hang on broken doors. Everywhere you go, the snow deepens, muffling the world into silence. You pass a frozen pond and catch your reflection. The face staring back is not monstrous. It's beautiful, luminous, carved with perfect symmetry, eyes glinting like ice polished by centuries. You smile and the world around you trembles. Behind you, the skeletal saint speaks softly. Once, they called you savior. Then, they called you myth. Now, they will call you tradition. The words sink deep like roots beneath the frost. You walk farther north, the air sharper, the stars burning cold above. Villagers will tell stories, you know, of the night a pale traveler came when the bells rang wrong, of a Christmas feast where everyone fell asleep before dawn, of gifts left by unseen hands that smelled faintly of smoke and snow. They will sing your songs to children, never knowing what they mean. They will hang garlands to disguise the rot. They will bake bread shaped like skulls, not realizing they are imitating the old offering. And every winter, when the wind turns cruel and the night grows long, you will walk again to remind them. The skeletal saint halts at the edge of the forest. He looks back once toward the valley buried in sleep. They'll forget you again, he says quietly. You nod. That's why they love me. You step into the trees. The snow swallows your footsteps. The bells grow faint. Only the faint echo of a carol remains, soft, haunting, and almost tender. The first and last Christmas song. As the sky lightens toward dawn, a whisper passes through the cold air, a promise disguised as a prayer. If the world grows warm again, I will return. And somewhere beyond the forest a child hums in her sleep, the same tune. The nightmare hasn't ended. It has become the season. Centuries bleed together like melted wax. The world warms, rebuilds, forgets. Plague gives way to progress, rot to religion, fear to fairy tale. But the song never truly dies. It lingers in whispers, in winter winds, in the hum of children's carols sung too softly to remember their meaning. You feel it, faint, distant, echoing beneath the cobblestones of a world that believes it's moved on. You drift between centuries like frost across glass, invisible, patient. By the time the clocks begin to strike 12 in the new world, your name has been rewritten. Not Nicholas. Not Saint of Ash. Now they call you Santa Claus. You watch them from rooftops, candles replaced by electric light, prayers replaced by laughter. The garlands still hang, green and red, but no one remembers what those colors meant. Red for fever, green for decay. Every ornament is a grave marker. Every carol is a containment spell sung without understanding. You visit the first city that learned to celebrate again, Amsterdam, 1813. Snow falls like sugar. Bells ring. A man in scarlet robes parades through the streets on horseback, children trailing behind him singing. They call him Sinterklaas. He tosses coins and sweets into the crowd. The people cheer. And for a fleeting moment, you almost believe this is redemption, until you see the mask he wears. White beard, painted smile, eyes hollow behind the powder. You recognize it instantly. Your face, centuries diluted, a parody of salvation. You walk among them unseen, your boots leaving no mark on the snow. The children laugh and tug at their parents' hands, pointing at shop windows filled with dolls. All smiling, all hollow-eyed. One doll catches your attention, hand-carved, displayed behind frosted glass. It wears red velvet and carries a tiny sack of bones. On the tag below it, scrawled in ink, 3 words: gift of remembrance. You reach out. Your reflection stares back at you, kind, jolly, mortal. The reflection smiles wider, but you don't. For the first time in centuries, you feel something stir. Not anger, not grief. A strange kind of jealousy. They've turned your sorrow into joy, your warning into comfort, your plague-born mercy into a bedtime story. You walk away, but everywhere you go, you hear your name: Santa Claus, Father Christmas, St. Nicholas, Kris Kringle. Each one a new disguise for the same forgotten truth. You pass through London, Vienna, Moscow, cities shimmering with false warmth. Their churches ring in celebration, but the sound feels hollow. Every laugh, every cheer echoes like the bells that once warned of the dead. By the 20th century, the myth is complete. The red suit, the reindeer, the endless gifts. You are no longer the saint of frost. You are the patron of consumption. The world has cured the plague by becoming it. And still you walk unseen. Through malls, through snow-covered streets, through the hearts of men who fear nothing but silence. Every year the music plays louder. Every year they sing your name. You wonder if they know they're calling you home. It's Christmas Eve, year unknown, century irrelevant. The lights are brighter than ever, too bright, as if the world is trying to burn away its own shadow. You stand at the edge of a glass city. Neon halos drip from skyscrapers, reflecting off snow that looks cleaner than it should. Music bleeds from every window, the same 5 carols played in endless rotation. Every song is a spell, and no one remembers who wrote it. You walk unseen through the streets. Children press their faces against screens, not frosted glass. They watch a man in red, your diluted ghost, climbing chimneys that don't exist anymore. The voice of an announcer cuts through the static. He's making a list. He's checking it twice. You almost laugh. They've turned your ledger of the dead into a game. You stop beside a Christmas tree in the center of the square. It's enormous, strung with lights that pulse like veins. At its base, people take photos, smile, sip from paper cups of sugared wine. Their joy smells artificial, sterilized, like disinfectant and cinnamon. A child drops her toy, a small plush Santa. You pick it up before she notices. The toy's fabric is warm, too warm. You squeeze it gently, and something inside hums. Not a battery, a melody. Your melody. The same song the monks hummed under the monastery, now repackaged into a Christmas jingle. You feel the hum travel up your arm, crawling beneath your skin like a long-forgotten nerve waking up. For centuries you've waited in silence. Now the world has sung your song again. You glance at the tree. Its lights flicker once, twice, then all at once. The crowd gasps as the bulbs burn out, plunging the square into darkness. Then faintly, the sound of bells. Not electronic, not synthetic, real, ancient. Snow begins to fall, soft at first, then thicker, heavier. People cheer, unaware that no weather had been forecast. But this snow doesn't melt. It clings to their coats, their hair, their lashes. Tiny flakes shaped like skulls, invisible except in the right light. You step forward, and wherever your boots touch, frost spreads through the concrete like veins under skin. Your reflection appears in the mirrored glass of a building, tall, faceless, robed in smoke. No red suit, no laughter, just the truth, walking home. The crowd keeps singing, their voices overlapping with the recorded choir blaring from hidden speakers. The sound merges, mechanical and human, living and dead. You can hear the ancient rhythm beneath the noise, the old hymn, the carol that once lulled an empire to its knees. You whisper along, the words tasting like ice and memory, and with every syllable the lights of the city dim, street by street, building by building. The temperature drops, breath turns visible, the joy turns real again, because it's desperate. And somewhere between the skyscrapers and the silence you feel it, the heartbeat of the old world, slow and steady, rising from beneath the foundations. The plague has never died. It has only learned to sing in major keys. You look up. Snow swirls like falling ash, and from the blackness between the stars, a familiar voice drifts down. You were right to come back. The first to fall is a child, not dead, just asleep, mid-laughter, snowflakes melting on her cheeks. Then another, then dozens. Parents rush to wake them, shaking, shouting. But the children only smile faintly in their sleep, that serene, hollow smile. The same one carved on the straw mannequins of Florence. You stand in the center of the square, and the world begins to blur around you. The snow thickens, the air folds inward, and the music changes key, just slightly. Enough that every note sounds almost human. Behind you, the giant Christmas tree starts to hum. The lights, though unpowered, glow again, not white or red, but pale blue, the color of winter breath, the color of death, disguised as peace. Someone screams, not in horror but awe. The crowd looks up. Snowflakes spiral in slow motion, shimmering with faint symbols as they fall, Latin prayers, fragments of names, and musical notes that shift mid-air. The melody that once sealed the monastery floor now fills the sky. Every building becomes an instrument, every window pane a drum, every heart a tuning fork for the hymn that can't die. You watch as the snow begins to cling, not cold now, but warm. It sticks to faces, hands, and mouths, shaping itself into masks, smiling masks. One by one, the crowd becomes your choir. They hum softly, eyes half closed. A wave of stillness spreads outward, rippling across the city like a tide of light. You walk among them unseen, unheard, though every one of them is singing your song. You can feel their warmth bleeding into you, a century's worth of dormant faith reigniting. They've been waiting for you longer than they ever realized. You pass a television store, its screens flickering with static. Then through the snow the image stabilizes. You. Not as you are, but as they've made you. Red suit, white beard, jovial grin. Your reflection inside their lie. The voice of a news anchor stammers through the feed. Breaking news. Reports of a strange phenomenon across the city. Snowfall has intensified, and witnesses claim to hear singing, even when alone. The voice cuts off. The screen cracks. The jingle resumes, but distorted. You see people kneeling in the streets now, hands clasped, whispering verses they shouldn't know. Cars stop mid-traffic. Storefronts flicker with candlelight instead of bulbs. Christmas has remembered what it was. You look to the sky. The clouds part, and for the first time since your rebirth you see the full moon. It's enormous, white as bone, glowing with impossible detail. Across its face moves a silhouette, skeletal, reindeer-like, dragging a broken sleigh through the air. The people point, crying out in wonder. They think it's magic. They think it's you. You almost pity them, because you know what comes next. The fever, the burning joy, the dance of remembrance that ends in silence. This is how it always starts, how it always ends. You close your eyes, listening to the carols swelling from every throat. And somewhere beneath the music, faint, almost tender, a whisper curls through the cold. The world is sick again. Your season has begun. The city begins to glow from within. Windows shimmer like stained glass. Streets pulse with a red hue that has nothing to do with light. It's coming from the people. Their bodies radiate warmth, not fever, not fire, but something worse. Reverence. They sing louder now, voices rising in perfect harmony, synchronized to a rhythm that doesn't exist in any human measure. The sound moves through the air like a tide, bending the snowflakes mid-fall. You feel it too. It crawls up your spine, familiar and electric. The old power, awakened, uncontrolled. This isn't faith anymore. It's contagion. The skeletal sleigh passes overhead again, slower now. Chains jangle like wind chimes, their echoes spiraling down into every open window. And each time the bells sound, more people fall to their knees. The city's heart beats in chorus, 100,000 lungs breathing in unison, exhaling frost that turns to shimmering dust. One by one, the neon signs flicker out. Every advertisement, every slogan, every image of cheer vanishes beneath a blanket of frost. The only lights left are candles, millions of them. You walk past a man stringing them in his shop window, smiling dreamily. When he turns to greet you, his eyes are pure white. He hums the tune under his breath. "I remember now," he says softly. "We used to sing this during the first winter, before the priests made it wrong." He hands you a candle. The wax feels warm, pliable, alive. Inside it, something moves, faintly shifting like a heartbeat. You set it on the ground and keep walking. All around you, the world is transforming. Garlands made of ivy and bone, ornaments that drip blood-red wax, trees bending their branches to form arches over the streets. The city has become a cathedral, and you, its returning God. But something feels wrong. You can sense it, a vibration beneath the harmony, a note out of place. It grows louder as you move through the crowd. Then you see her, a woman standing at the edge of the square, unmoving, unblinking. Her face is pale, her lips cracked, her breath visible, but she's not singing, she's watching. When your eyes meet, the world goes still. Her voice breaks the silence. "Do you know me?" The words strike harder than any scream. You step closer. Her face flickers, young, then old, then familiar. It's the child from the valley, the one who gave you the candle centuries ago. She hasn't aged. She hasn't slept. "You gave them peace," she says. "Now look what they've done with it." You glance around. The revelry has turned frantic. Laughter too loud, dancing too violent, carols warping into shrieks of joy. People are burning themselves on their own candles and smiling as they do. "They don't need me anymore," you whisper. She shakes her head. "They need you to end it." She steps forward, the candlelight bending around her like gravity. You made the first Christmas to stop their suffering. Now they've learned to worship it. Behind her, the great tree begins to crack from its roots, branches splitting, ornaments falling like glass stars. The snow turns darker. The music falters, then distorts into a single endless note. You stare at the child, the last remnant of the old world, and realize that for the first time in centuries she's crying. The crowd starts to chant again. Not your name, something new. A word that's never existed before, but sounds like the death of language itself. The city shakes. The candles flicker out, and you feel your pulse fade with them. The plague is no longer sleeping, it's awake, and it's singing back. The song splits open the night, a sound so vast it feels like the sky itself is tearing. Every note reverberates through the bones of the city, steel, concrete, and flesh trembling together. You can taste the vibration. It's copper and candle smoke, like blood burning on snow. The crowd stops dancing. Their eyes turn upward, pupils vanishing into white. They open their mouths, not in song now, but in exhale. From each throat, a cloud of frost escapes, rising into the air like incense. The clouds merge, they swirl, and then they take form. A shape made of vapor and light, vast enough to blot out the moon. 1,000 faces overlap within it, men, women, children, saints, sinners, all frozen in silent choir. Their mouths open and close in unison, forming words that don't belong to this world. The plague choir, your creation, your echo. The child, the ageless girl from the valley, stands at your side. "They're what's left of us," she says quietly. "All the prayers that never reached heaven." You stare upward, unable to look away. The choir pulses like a living cloud, its edges fraying into tendrils of mist that curl downward, caressing the tallest buildings like affectionate fingers. Each touch spreads frost, Glass cracks, streetlights explode. Below, the people collapse into the snow, trembling. They aren't screaming. They're whispering the same phrase over and over, a litany you can't ignore. He remembers us. The choir's many mouths begin to sing again. The melody is yours, but twisted, half praise, half plea. It bends space, distorting sound into color. Every breath you take paints the air in shades of blue and gold. The child turns toward you, her expression unreadable. "This is the end of the song," she says, "the verse you never finished." You step closer to the center of the square. Snow swirls around your boots, spiraling into perfect circles. The same sigils carved into the monastery floor so many centuries ago. You speak without meaning to, your voice amplified by the wind. "Why do they still call me?" The choir answers in harmony, its thousand voices layering into a single word that feels like thunder and prayer combined. "Because you never let them forget." Your breath catches. The child's eyes glimmer. Every gift, every song, every feast, it was your plague wrapped in comfort. You gave them ritual, and ritual became infection. You look at her horrified. "So they're," she nods, "carriers of you." The choir's faces ripple, merging into one, your own, magnified 100-fold across the sky. It smiles down upon you, that same hollow, painted grin that started all of this. You feel the weight of centuries pressing against your ribs, the guilt, the worship, the lie. You reach out a trembling hand toward the apparition, desperate to silence it. But when your fingers brush the air, the entire cloud inhales. The city follows. Every light flickers, every candle reignites. The people rise, eyes blazing white, hands lifted in unison. And together they sing, louder, deeper, unstoppable, your carol, your curse. You feel your power surge back into you, unbidden, unstoppable. The ground cracks open, snow melting to steam. The choir laughs through its harmony, a sound so exquisite it hurts. You fall to your knees. The child grips your hand, her skin freezing to yours. "End it," she whispers. "You're the only one who can." But you know the truth. The song doesn't belong to you anymore. You created it to bury death, now it lives to bury you. You rise slowly, the frost cracking under your boots like splintered glass. The choir trembles above you, voices bending the night into strange geometries, sound made visible, faith made toxic. Every note tears another seam in the sky. You can see through the rifts now, empty streets of forgotten centuries, endless winters looping in silence, the echoes of every Christmas that ever existed, each one a failed attempt at salvation. You understand, finally. This isn't a haunting, it's history repeating. The world is addicted to its own comfort. The child clings to your arm, her breath a halo of frost. "They're too loud," she murmurs. "They'll sing until they forget how to stop." You look around. The people are still singing, faces tilted toward the glowing sky, smiles carved by devotion. Their tears freeze before they fall. They are beautiful in their ruin. The choir's immense form begins to descend, not falling, folding. Its vaporous limbs stretch downward, threading between buildings like a spider weaving a web from moonlight. Where it touches, the world crystallizes. Cars, windows, trees, everything flash freezes into glass monuments. You step forward, the wind howling around you like 1,000 open throats. The child grabs your hand tighter. "What will you do?" You look at her, this eternal witness, the last memory of what Christmas once meant, and say, "What I should have done in 1348. She nods, her lips trembling. Her candle, long extinguished, flares to life one last time, blue flame, cold and bright as forgiveness. You take it from her, feeling its impossible heat in your palm. Inside that flame you see everything, the plague pits, the monks, the villagers, the children singing in the dark. All of it spiraling back to this moment. You lift the candle toward the choir. Its light pierces the mist, cutting through layers of shadow and song. The faces within the cloud recoil, screaming in harmony. It's a beautiful sound, unbearable and divine. "Enough," you whisper. The flame grows. The choir thrashes, its body fracturing into shards of light and sound. Every voice falters except one, yours. You hear yourself singing, centuries of penance poured into a single final verse. The melody slows, turning solemn, aching. You aren't killing it, you're completing it. The unfinished hymn of humanity's first winter. The ground splits, revealing a glow beneath the ice, not hellfire but memory, bright and endless. The candle dissolves in your hand, its light seeping through your skin, into your veins, into the frost itself. The choir begins to crumble. Faces fade. Voices collapse into silence. The people around you drop to their knees, exhausted, hollow-eyed, alive. The frost recedes from the streets. Snow falls again. Soft, white, ordinary. The child looks up at you, tears streaming down her cheeks and freezing mid-fall. Did it work? You look to the sky. The rift has sealed. The moon glows clean and full. The night is quiet for the first time in centuries. It's over, you say. But even as you speak, you hear it, faint, almost inaudible. A single bell, ringing from somewhere deep below the earth. Not a warning, a promise. You close your eyes. The snow gathers around you, burying your footprints as you walk into the fog. Somewhere far behind you, a child begins to hum. The same song, the same curse, soft, gentle, eternal. The world will forget again. That is its nature. And when it does, you will return. Because Christmas isn't born of joy. It's built on the memory of plague. And remembrance always finds its season. The year is 2048. The snow falls differently now. Artificial, too symmetrical, machine perfect. Drones hum over the Tuscan hills, tracing digital grids across the earth where a monastery once stood. The wind carries no scent of incense, only the faint static of electricity and ozone. You don't exist here anymore, not yet. You're sleeping, waiting, but someone is calling. Her name is Dr. Ilara Voss, archaeologist, anthropologist, believer in nothing. She wipes her gloved hand across a slab of stone, revealing carved letters beneath a century of dirt. Do not sing. Her team hovers behind her. Students, drones, light panels. One of them laughs nervously. Looks like medieval superstition, maybe a plague ward. Ilara doesn't answer. She's staring at something else, an etching of a figure cloaked in snow and bones, carved with meticulous reverence. Its smile is too wide, its eyes too empty. Saint Nicholas, she murmurs, brushing more dust away. But not the one we know. Her assistant, a tall man with mirrored glasses, adjusts his tablet. Records show this monastery collapsed during the Black Death. No survivors, but there's no evidence of burial sites. It's like they vanished. Ilara kneels, tracing a spiral symbol at the statue's feet. She doesn't recognize it, but you do. The sigil that sealed the choir. Underneath the stone, something hums, faint, subsonic, like a heartbeat. The drones above flicker, their lights dimming for a split second. Then, silence. No wind, no sound. Even the snow seems to hang motionless in the air. Ilara looks up, frowning. Power drop? Her assistant shakes his head. Negative, just interference. The hum grows louder. She presses her hand flat against the stone. It vibrates beneath her skin, cold, steady, rhythmic. And then she hears it. A melody. At first she thinks it's feedback from her earpiece, but it's too human. A whispering chorus, soft, wordless, echoing through the stones. Who's playing that? She calls. No answer. Her team looks around uneasily. The air feels heavier now, charged like a storm about to break. One of the students backs away, voice shaking. Dr. Voss, the scanners are picking up movement. Below us. The ground trembles. Dust rains from the broken archways. The carved figure seems to shimmer as if light is leaking from within the stone. Ilara rises slowly, breath visible in the cold. Seal the site, she orders, but no one moves, because they all hear it now. The carol. Low and distant yet unmistakable, the same notes that ended a world once before. The The earth splits open beneath the statue. Blue light spills upward like a wound reopening. Ilara stumbles backward, eyes wide, frozen between terror and awe. Inside the light, a face. Not fully formed, more suggestion than flesh. Eyes like frost, mouth like silence breaking. It smiles. The melody sharpens, rising from whisper to harmony. The air twists into words that no language remembers, but every human instinct understands. He remembers us. Ilara gasps, the sound ripped from her throat. The light floods the sky, painting the snow crimson. And deep in the world's sleeping heart, something long forgotten begins to stir again. The saint of plague, the father of frost, the shadow that made joy possible. You open your eyes. The light sears through the storm clouds, cutting across the valley like a divine incision. Every drone in the sky malfunctions at once. Rotors sputtering, lenses cracking, feeds dissolving into static. The air tastes metallic. Ilara shields her eyes, her breath catching in her chest as the temperature plummets 20 degrees in seconds. Then, silence. The hum stops. The light vanishes. All that remains is the echo of something vast inhaling. Her team begins to panic. Power's gone. Communications down. Get the backup generator. Doctor, look. Ilara turns. The statue, the smiling, bone-draped saint is gone. In its place stands a hollow cavity shaped like a man. Frost blooms outward from it, webbing across the stone like veins of ice. She approaches slowly, drawn in by the cold. Inside the hollow, she sees faint patterns etched into the walls, not random carvings but musical notation. The same symbols found on medieval manuscripts, the same melody. She whispers to herself, "It's a hymn." Her breath fogs the air, and for an instant her exhale freezes mid-air, forming perfect notes suspended like glass. They shimmer, then dissolve. Her assistant stares at her, pale. "Did you see that?" She doesn't respond. Something inside her chest is vibrating. Not fear, recognition. The melody plays again, faint but growing, not from speakers or instruments, but from within the earth. Low, sonorous, bone deep. The snow outside begins to move, not fall, move. It creeps toward the excavation site like a living tide, crawling over the equipment, swallowing the tracks, muffling every sound. The valley becomes a bowl of silence, and then, across the snow, footprints appear. One set, bare feet, walking toward her. She steps back instinctively, heart pounding. Who's there? No answer, only the faintest chime. Bells, metallic and sorrowful, drifting on the wind that wasn't there a moment ago. The team scrambles for the trucks, shouting, slipping on the frost that now coats everything. Their voices are muffled by the growing fog. Ilara stands alone before the hollow statue. Her flashlight flickers. The beam catches on something suspended in midair, a shard of ice impossibly shaped. Inside it, frozen like an insect in amber, a single drop of blood. It pulses once, then cracks open. The light inside the hollow flares again, but this time, it's not blue. It's red. Deep, ancient, arterial. The snow rises in spirals, each flake glowing faintly as it lifts into the air. They twist together, forming a vague shape, tall, robed, faceless. Ilara can't move. Her body is locked between instinct and fascination. She knows this isn't human, it isn't holy either. The figure's voice is soft, not thunder but memory. Do you remember the first winter? Her flashlight slips from her hand. It hits the ground, beam spinning wildly through the fog. Her lips move, the words leaving her before she can think. St. Nicholas. The figure tilts its head. Its grin spreads like cracking ice. Not anymore. Her knees buckle. The wind rushes outward in every direction. A breath exhaled by something older than plague, older than faith. Her assistant screams from somewhere behind her. Then silence again. Only the faint sound of singing, children's voices echoing through the fog. You take your first step. The frost follows. Each footprint blooms with light. Above, satellites glitch and flicker, their signals hijacked by a frequency older than time, a digital hum carrying the melody across the network into every device, every speaker, every home. Christmas songs distort, screens display static snow, and through it all your whisper cuts through, "If they remember joy, I return." The world has remembered, and you are awake. At first, it is only a sound. A brief shimmer that slips between frequencies, too low to be heard, too human to be ignored. It travels faster than thought, carried by signals and algorithms woven into everything that hums. The world calls it interference. You call it breathing. The melody threads itself through the modern network, radio, satellite, fiber, pulse. No one knows where it began. Some say it was the monastery site. Others swear it appeared in the snow static of a global broadcast. But everyone hears it. In New York, a subway musician plays it without realizing why. In Kyoto, a child hums it in her sleep, her voice syncing perfectly with an invisible chorus. In Lagos, streetlights flicker in rhythm, casting waves of pale blue across the night. Ilara watches it all unfold from her apartment, the city beneath her window flickering like a dying constellation. She hasn't slept in 3 days. Every screen she owns is off, yet faint patterns of frost form on their surfaces, spirals, sigils, musical bars. Her breath fogs the glass. When she exhales, the air hums. It isn't fear that grips her now, it's recognition. The melody from the excavation has become a global phenomenon. Scientists call it a neural resonance anomaly. News anchors call it the Christmas wave. But Ilara knows better. It isn't new. It's old. Older than faith, older than story. The world is remembering. She plays back one of her recordings expecting static. Instead, the file opens with a whisper. "You sang first." Her heartbeat slows. Every lamp in the room flickers once, then steadies to the rhythm of the voice. Outside, snow begins to fall, though it's midsummer. Ilara steps onto her balcony. Below her, the city glows faintly blue, the same color as the light that rose from the earth in Tuscany. The wind carries fragments of melody, soft, patient, endless. She closes her eyes, and for the first time she doesn't resist. The song enters her mind gently, like a memory of something she loved before she was born. She sees fragments, a monastery, a fire, children singing, and then a figure made of shadow and frost, watching, waiting, forgiving. When she opens her eyes again, the skyline is alive with sound. Buildings pulse with light in perfect synchronization. Drones hover in the distance, their navigation systems blinking in time with the melody. The entire world has become an instrument. She whispers, barely audible, "Is this how it begins again?" The voice answers, carried on the wind that isn't wind. It never ended. And as the song spreads, humanity doesn't scream or pray. They listen. Their joy grows quieter, their movements slower, their faces softened by something that feels like peace, but isn't. In every city, across every time zone, snow begins to fall, perfectly patterned, perfectly remembered. The past has connected itself to the future, and in that symmetry, the ancient melody finally finds its new body. The season has returned, not as a curse, but as a reminder. That joy, no matter how bright, always begins in darkness. By morning, the world hums like a single chord. It is not chaos, it's precision. Every device, every screen, every current of electricity vibrates at the same frequency. 134.8 hertz, a number, a date. Ilara stands in the dark of her apartment, surrounded by the quiet pulse of the modern age dreaming in unison. Her phone lies on the table, screen cracked, frozen mid-notification. "Do you remember?" She doesn't touch it. She already knows the answer. Outside, the snow glows faintly blue under the rising sun. It doesn't melt. It shimmers, forming spirals in the streets, patterns that repeat across rooftops and windshields, the same sigil she found carved beneath the monastery. Everywhere people gather without instruction, in the plazas of Rome, in the subways of Seoul, in the glass canyons of New York. They hum quietly, without words, without awareness. The sound vibrates the air itself, a living heartbeat connecting them across oceans. Ilara turns on her recorder. "Day 17, she whispers. "The resonance has stabilized. Global coherence at 92%. No reports of panic. They're calm. Too calm." She presses a trembling hand to her chest. Her pulse matches the rhythm. Somewhere deep in the network, the data flows backward. Servers glitch, archives rewrite themselves. History begins to fold in real time. Plague accounts replaced with songs. Famine records rewritten as festivals. Even the digital world is forgetting. She scrolls through an old news article. The Black Death, 1348. But now the image beside it shows a celebration, not a burial. Smiling faces, snow falling like confetti. The caption reads, "The first Christmas parade." Ilara's breath catches. It isn't erasure, it's rewriting. The melody is changing memory, bending time's archive into harmony. Her voice shakes as she records, "The world isn't infected, it's harmonizing. The song isn't killing us, it's teaching us to forget the pain that created us." The lights in her apartment flicker. The temperature drops. The reflection in her window begins to move on its own. It looks at her, calm, smiling, haloed in frost. "Ilara," it whispers, "you are the bridge. You opened the door." She steps closer. Her reflection doesn't mimic her movement. It reaches toward her instead. For a heartbeat, she sees it clearly. The saint, the father of frost. Not a man, not a god. A memory, searching for form. "You can't live without them," she says, voice trembling. "And they can't live without forgetting you." The reflection nods once, slowly. Then it smiles, and the glass crystallizes beneath its hand. A perfect snowflake branching outward until it fills the entire pane. Through the frost, she sees the city begin to shimmer. Skyscrapers bending with light, clouds pulsing like veins. Every person below standing perfectly still, faces lifted, eyes closed, lips moving in silent reverence. A new kind of Christmas, a world synchronized in peace so total it almost resembles death. Ilara presses her forehead against the glass. Her reflection whispers one last time, "Memory is mercy, and mercy always returns." Outside, the world exhales, a single soft note that stretches across the horizon. The snow falls harder, yet feels lighter than air. And as the sound fades, she understands. It was never about plague or punishment. It was about remembrance, learning how to survive. A month later, the world has no clocks. Time feels irrelevant when every heartbeat follows the same rhythm. No one remembers when the singing began. No one questions why it never ends. The melody has woven itself into everything. The hum of power lines, the murmur of ocean currents, even the wind between buildings. Every surface vibrates faintly, resonant with an invisible pattern. People call it the harmonic age. Governments call it stability. Ilara calls it the lull. She has become a ghost in the new order, a relic of when silence still meant something. Her research is forbidden now. All written records of the plague myth have been erased, replaced with archives of perpetual celebration. She walks through streets that glow faintly blue at night, every window displaying the same moving image, snow falling endlessly over smiling faces. The world has turned itself into an endless Christmas. No hunger, no pain, no fear, just the hum. And yet, beneath that hum, there's something else. A faint, syncopated beat, a counter-melody, a pulse that doesn't belong. Ilara feels it in her bones before she hears it. It's irregular, human, imperfect, a discord that doesn't fit the universal rhythm. She follows it through the sleeping city, down beneath the neon arches, past automated carols whispering through broken speakers, into the tunnels that once carried trains but now carry memory. There, graffiti scrawled in red paint, glowing faintly under the frost. "Do not sing." The phrase again, like a scar resurfacing through centuries. A voice echoes in the dark. "You remember too, don't you?" A boy steps out from the shadows. 15, maybe 16, his clothes torn, his breath clouding the air. In his hand, a candle, a real one. Its flame flickers unevenly, alive. Ilara stares. "Where did you get that?" He shrugs. "They burn these in the underground. The old one said it's how people used to pray." The candlelight throws his shadow onto the tunnel wall. It doesn't match his shape. The shadow is taller, older, robed. "You shouldn't be here," she warns. He tilts his head. "They said you built this world, that you woke the song." "I didn't mean to," she whispers. The boy steps closer, eyes bright in the candlelight. "My mother says the song helps her sleep. My father hasn't spoken in days." Everyone smiles, but nobody dreams. He looks up at her, desperate. "Can you make it stop?" Ilara opens her mouth to answer, but the tunnel vibrates, low and deep. Dust falls from the ceiling. The candle flame flickers violently, bending toward the ground. The melody has found them. The hum builds, filling the air with invisible pressure. Every surface trembles. The boy grips the candle tighter, eyes wide. "It doesn't like when we talk." The frost creeps along the walls, spiraling toward them. Ilara grabs his arm. "Run!" They sprint through the tunnel, the sound following. Not music now, but breathing, the same kind she heard in Tuscany. At the far end of the tunnel, light seeps through the cracks in a rusted door. The hum fades behind them. They collapse outside into the cold night, gasping. The boy looks back. "Why is it following us?" Ilara stares up at the sky, where faint lines of light curve across the horizon like the bars of a song. "Because," she says, "it doesn't want to be remembered as silence." Above them, snow begins to fall again, perfect, symmetrical, infinite. They walk until the hum fades to memory. The city lies above them like a sleeping animal, all rhythm, no thought. Here, beneath the frozen bridges and power conduits, the silence feels raw, unfinished, human. Ilara steadies the boy's candle with her hand. The flame steadies too, its glow painting their faces gold against the steel. "Listen," she says. He tilts his head. There is nothing, no song, no hum, just the echo of water dripping through stone. For the first time in years, she hears her own heartbeat. It doesn't match the world's rhythm. It is wild, uneven, alive. They find a corridor carved long before the New Order, walls lined with obsolete machines, their screens dusty, blank. The boy runs his fingers along one of them. "What is this place?" Ilara answers softly. "A museum, or maybe a grave." He frowns. "A grave for what?" She looks around at the machines, the circuits, the symbols etched into metal. "For the parts of us we traded for peace." They move deeper, past tangled wires and collapsed ceilings, until they reach a vast chamber. Hundreds of candles burn there, real ones, not projections, their light trembling across faces. Dozens of people sit in silence. Some meditate. Some simply stare into the dark. All of them wear small copper rings over their ears. A woman rises as they enter. Her voice is soft, like an echo remembered rather than spoken. "You shouldn't have come from the surface." Ilara nods. "I was looking for you." The woman studies her. "Then you already know what we are." The boy glances between them. "Who are you?" "We are listeners," the woman replies. "We guard what silence remains. Every time the world forgets how to stop singing, we remember." Ilara steps closer. "I heard your signal, the pulse that doesn't fit." The woman smiles faintly. Imperfection keeps the song from becoming a cage. A low warmth spreads through the chamber. No humming, no rhythm, only breath. Human breath, irregular, tender, flawed. Ilara kneels beside one of the candles. "Do you know what the song really is?" The woman nods once. An echo of the first time people tried to make sense of their fear. They gave it melody so it wouldn't devour them. They forgot that silence is also holy. The boy stares into the flame. "It feels different here." Ilara nods. "This is what life sounds like before it becomes music." The woman extends a small object, a recording device, antique and delicate. "We save moments, not melodies. The rustle of paper, the crack of wood in the cold, the sound of someone not knowing what to say." Ilara takes it, her hands trembling. "May I add one?" The woman gestures to the circle. "Anything." Ilara leans toward the microphone, exhales slowly and says, "This is the sound of remembering how to be quiet." When she stops speaking, the silence that follows feels endless. Not empty, alive, waiting. The boy smiles. For the first time, no one is humming. The candlelight flickers in rhythm with nothing but its own uncertainty. Somewhere far above, the snow keeps falling and the world continues to sing. But down here, under layers of forgotten stone, silence has finally found a place to live. The silence holds for hours. It stretches around the chamber like breath before dawn, fragile, luminous, whole. Ilara sits among the listeners, candle wax dripping over her knuckles, feeling something she can't quite name. It isn't peace. It's the possibility of peace. Above ground, the city hums with endless precision. Below, she feels the first irregularities, small vibrations, unpredictable, human. The woman from the circle leans toward her. "Do you hear it?" Ilara closes her eyes. At first, nothing. Then faintly, a new pattern, softer than sound. So it's not the old melody, not the carol of the plague. It's something born from its absence, a resonance shaped by quiet itself. The woman whispers, "We call it the counter-song." The boy looks up, wide-eyed. "It sounds like thinking." Ilara smiles faintly. "Maybe that's what it is." The woman nods. The harmonic world can't process silence. It reads it as error. The counter-song lives in those errors, in hesitation, in doubt. Ilara studies the candles, flickering in unpredictable rhythm. Each flame a tiny defiance against perfection. "You're saying the only way to break the harmony is to let it notice the flaw?" "Yes," the woman says. "Silence teaches imperfection how to live again." A low vibration ripples through the floor. The boy's candle wavers but doesn't go out. Someone in the circle whispers a prayer, not in words but in pauses, spaces between breath. Ilara realizes they're composing silence the way the old world composed music. The woman places a small device in Ilara's palm, a worn recorder heavy engraved with a single phrase. Every pause remembers. She continues, "You found the door. Now you must open it again, but differently. Not to summon, to remind." Ilara looks down at the recorder. Her reflection flickers in its metal surface. Eyes tired, hopeful, alive. "How?" The woman gestures upward. "Take silence to the surface. Let them feel it. One broadcast, one breath of stillness inside the song." The boy stares at Ilara, terrified and awed. "They'll notice, they'll come for you." Ilara smiles faintly. "Then I'll finally know they're listening." She rises. The listeners begin to hum the counter-song's rhythm, not melody, but pulse, uneven, organic, every mistake deliberate. As she walks toward the exit, the candles flicker wildly, not from wind, from agreement. The room exhales her name, almost silently. When she climbs the last stair, she finds the night waiting. Still bright snow drifting in fractal spirals. Far above, the towers of the harmonic city glow with impossible symmetry. She closes her eyes, holding the recorder against her chest. The world hums its endless perfection, and underneath it faintly she hears her own heartbeat, stubborn, irregular, true. She presses the record button. The device captures nothing but the sound of a single human breath breaking the pattern. In that moment, somewhere in the city, a light flickers off beat. A single window forgets to glow. A mistake. A beginning. Ilara waits until dawn. The horizon glows faintly silver, the color of hesitation before the sun commits. The city below hums in steady rhythm, unaware that a single flaw is already forming within it. She climbs to the rooftop of an abandoned observatory, a relic from the pre-harmonic world, still thick with dust and memory. The telescope stands cracked, its lens fractured into a dozen imperfect reflections. She likes it that way. The recorder in her hand feels warm now, alive in a quiet way. Each second of silence she captured carries the texture of breath, of pause, of choice. She connects it to the observatory's broadcast array, obsolete, analog, unpredictable. The last technology that doesn't obey the song. The boy watches her work, fingers twitching nervously around his candle. "You really think they'll hear it? They already are," she says. "Even perfection gets tired of itself." When the cables are set, she flips the main switch. The machinery groans awake, ancient gears turning, static whispering like rain. For a moment the city's hum swells as if noticing her rebellion. Ilara exhales slowly and presses play. Nothing happens. At least, nothing visible. No sound. No light. Just silence, door wide, clean, absolute, rippling outward from the antenna like an invisible wave. The boy looks at her, puzzled. "That's it?" She nods. "That's everything." Across the city, lights flicker. Screens pause mid-frame. The air thickens, as though the world itself has forgotten to breathe. People stop mid-step, mid-word, mid-laughter. For a fraction of a heartbeat, the hum falters. The rhythm cracks, and into that crack slips something miraculous. Quiet. It spreads. Not like infection, but like understanding. In the markets, in the towers, in the glowing glass chapels, people lower their heads. Not in worship, but in recognition. A collective sigh, a sound older than language, drifts through the streets. Ilara feels the wind shift. The snow begins to fall again, irregular, human, each flake unique, each one a defiance against the geometry of the harmonic age. She looks to the boy, who's staring at the sky in wonder. "It's different," he whispers. "The snow doesn't match anymore." "That's how it used to be," she says softly. "The hum doesn't vanish, and it learns, it bends. For the first time, the perfect song incorporates its first flaw, and instead of breaking, it evolves. The rhythm breathes, the melody waits. The silence becomes part of it, not an error, but a choice." Ilara closes her eyes, feeling the city exhale around her. The world isn't healed, it's awake. The recorder stops automatically. She detaches it, tucking it into her coat pocket. It's no longer heavy. It carries nothing now but a pause, the shape of something missing, yet essential. The boy grins faintly. What happens next? She looks toward the horizon, where sunlight breaks through the frost, uneven and beautiful. "Now," she says, "the song remembers how to listen." And as the day begins, the world hums again, not in perfect rhythm, but in something far rarer. Harmony made from difference. Days stretch, uneven as a child's handwriting. The city no longer moves in unison. People wake at odd hours, laughter comes without rhythm, traffic hums in mismatched tempos. At first there is confusion, then color. Shop windows stop displaying the same images. Musicians in the plazas begin to improvise again, uncertain notes that bend, collide, and accidentally form beauty. The world is learning to speak without rehearsal. Ilara walks through the streets with the boy. No one looks the same anymore. Some faces are still calm and glowing with harmonic peace. Others are awake, curious, messy, alive. A woman paints graffiti across a glass wall, jagged bursts of red, gold, and black. When the boy asks what it means, she laughs. "It doesn't have to mean, it just feels." The phrase spreads faster than the song ever did. It doesn't have to mean. Posters appear overnight. Walls bloom with color. For the first time in generations, people argue, politely at first, then passionately. Difference once erased becomes art again. In her pocket, Ilara carries the recorder. She hasn't played it since the broadcast. Sometimes she thinks she hears it whisper. Not words, but texture. A kind of silence with memory inside it. They pass a square where a crowd has gathered around an old piano. Someone plays, not perfectly, but joyfully. The melody stumbles, recovers, tumbles forward again. Children dance in the snow, missing steps, laughing at their own clumsiness. Ilara watches, eyes wet with something between grief and relief. The boy nudges her. "This is better, right?" She hesitates. "It's human." He frowns. "You sound sad." She looks at him. This child born into the hum, now learning chaos for the first time. "I'm not sad," she says. "I'm remembering." The city feels different underfoot. Softer somehow, less certain. Streetlights flicker without pattern. Trains run late. But people smile more often in the pauses. A group of listeners from the underground have begun teaching silence as an art form, not meditation, composition. Children sit in classrooms, learning to hold still and listen to the sound between heartbeats. The harmonic council still exists, though smaller now. Its leaders speak of adaptive resonance. They claim the system is stable. Ilara knows better. It's not stable. It's alive. She spends her nights at the observatory, writing by candlelight. Not reports, not data. Stories. Fragments of the old world that no one else remembers. How people once feared winter. How they learned to sing through fear. How forgetting nearly cost them everything. She titles the journal, "The Memory of Snow." Sometimes when the night grows too quiet, she hears faint bells. Not warning, not worship, just echoes. She imagines the Saint of Frost walking through the new world, smiling quietly to himself, finally unnecessary. Because humanity has learned his lesson, to find beauty in what almost breaks. The boy leans out the window beside her, snowflakes catching in his hair. "They say the song's gone," he murmurs. She smiles. "No," she says. "It just changed its tune." Outside, the city hums again. Not perfect, not eternal, but unmistakably alive. Winter deepens, and the snow no longer falls in patterns. It tumbles and drifts without rhythm, clinging to windows, softening edges. The city exhales. Ilara spends her mornings in the observatory, transcribing what people remember. Not facts, sensations. A baker recalls the sound of dough cracking in the cold. A mechanic writes about the smell of oil when machines first wake. Children describe dreams that don't repeat. She calls these fragments human weather. At night she listens back through her recorder. The silence inside is full, layered with ghosts of small sounds, breath, rustle, heartbeat. Every pause feels like a promise. The boy visits often. He's taller now, restless, curious. He brings her stories from the city, of spontaneous concerts, of snowball fights that last for days, of people arguing about what joy really means. "They're remembering too much," he says, half afraid, half amazed. "That's good," Ilara replies. "Memory is what keeps us uncertain." He looks out across the city lights. They still hum sometimes, the old rhythm, but only for a second. Ilara nods. The world can't unlearn the song. It can only balance it. On her desk sits the Book of Winter, its pages uneven, stitched from scraps of paper and printouts, ink smudged from cold fingers. She writes without outline or order. Each entry begins the same way. "This is how we remember warmth." She writes of the Saint of Frost, not as a god, not as punishment, but as the shape of longing itself. He isn't gone. He's diffused into memory, into ritual, into the idea that joy is something we make in defiance of silence. She pens a line that feels like truth. Every song is a truce between fear and hope. Outside, the snow glows faintly in the city's electric haze. People move slower now, learning to measure time again by heartbeat, by conversation, by mistake. In the square below, a girl builds a snow figure. Not perfect, not symmetrical. Its smile is crooked, its eyes uneven. She laughs, and the sound carries up to the observatory, rough and untrained. Beautiful. Ilara sets down her pen. She steps to the window and lets the cold air pour in. It smells of tin and pine and distant sea. For a moment she swears she sees him, the outline of the Saint of Frost at the edge of the streetlight, translucent, watching, not haunting, listening. He nods once, faintly, before dissolving into the snowfall. Ilara closes her journal. The boy glances up at her. "Was that him?" She smiles. "No, that was us, remembering him." They sit together in the quiet, the city breathing below. Somewhere in the distance a bell tolls, not in warning but in wonder. The sound fades into the night, and in its wake Only the simplest truth remains, that every winter carries a story, that forgetting is never complete, and that peace, the real kind, is made not from perfection, but from the courage to keep beginning again. The Book of Winter begins to travel on its own. Ilara never publishes it. She only leaves copies in train stations, libraries, empty cafes. Yet somehow within weeks the pages appear everywhere, on screens in classrooms, printed on recycled paper and tucked into strangers' pockets. No one agrees on who wrote it. Some say it's collective authorship, an open-source scripture of memory. Others whisper that the book wrote itself, as if silence had finally found language again. Every version begins differently, but all end the same way. Joy is how we keep the dark company. The world listens. Cities start turning off their lights at midnight, not by law but by choice. They call it the hour of stillness. For 60 minutes each night, the world unplugs. No hum, no signal, no synchronized rhythm. At first, people don't know what to do with the quiet. They pace, they hum nervously. Then they begin to talk, to sing softly, imperfectly, songs that don't align but somehow belong together. The first hour of stillness becomes the first real holiday of the new age. In one corner of the world, a sculptor freezes water mid-fall, capturing the exact shape of a melting snowflake. In another, an orchestra performs in total darkness, every instrument entering late on purpose. And everywhere, the same thing happens. People listen. Ilara spends these hours in the observatory, candlelight flickering against the telescope's cracked glass. She writes less now, speaks more softly. The boy, no longer a boy, not yet a man, helps her distribute pages. They don't talk much, they don't have to. One evening during the hour he asks, "Do you ever miss the hum?" She thinks before answering. Sometimes. It was beautiful in its own way, but it was everything at once, too complete. He nods. I like that now we get to be unfinished. Outside the snow falls heavier, blanketing the rooftops. People gather in the streets below, lighting candles, watching the flakes drift through the air like slow confetti. It's no longer celebration or ritual, it's gratitude. Ilara opens the telescope's fractured lens, pointing it toward the stars. Through the broken glass, constellations distort, familiar patterns bending into something new. The world isn't aligned anymore, and it's never looked better. The boy sets a candle on the telescope base. Its flame reflects in the cracked lens, splitting into hundreds of tiny fires. Ilara smiles. The world used to fear its fractures. He looks up at her. Now we live through them. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a faint tone rises, not mechanical, not ancient. A new harmony, shaped by human imperfection. The hour of stillness ends. Lights flicker back to life. But for a moment longer, no one speaks. The silence lingers, deliberate, chosen. Ilara closes her eyes. For the first time, she feels the world not as sound or song, but as balance. A memory restored, a rhythm remade, a winter finally warm. Spring arrives slowly, as if uncertain it's allowed. For months, the world has lived inside its hour of stillness, learning to hold quiet the way it once held fear. Now the thaw comes, tentative, uneven, human. Ilara walks through the city one morning and realizes she can no longer hear the hum at all. Not silence, not noise, just life, the creak of signs in the wind, the uneven rhythm of footsteps, laughter spilling from open windows. People have stopped chasing symmetry. They leave mistakes visible. They paint murals that run out of space. They compose songs that never resolve. Every day feels unfinished, and that feels right. Copies of the Book of Winter sit on cafe counters, in train cars, beside sleeping commuters. Children use the margins for drawings, stars, crooked trees, faces smiling with uneven teeth. No one calls it sacred, but everyone keeps it close. Ilara sits by the river with her recorder, the same one that once carried the song that almost swallowed the world. She presses record and listens. Wind, water, voices, everything imperfect, everything alive. The boy joins her, now tall, confident, still carrying the same small candle stub wherever he goes. "They're calling your book a myth," he says. She smiles. "All stories become myths when people start needing them for comfort instead of truth." He looks out across the water. "Do you mind?" She shakes her head. "It's better that way. Myths remind people to listen." A group of children run past, tossing handfuls of snow that hasn't yet melted. Their laughter rings through the air, bright, uneven, pure. Ilara turns off the recorder. The device hums for a moment, then settles into stillness. For the first time, she feels no pull to fix or preserve anything. The world can remember on its own now. "Do you think he's still out there?" the boy asks. She glances at him. "The saint?" He nods. Ilara looks toward the sky where clouds drift like parchment, reshaping themselves with every gust. "I think he's everywhere we allow silence to rest. He was never a ghost. He was a reflection, the shape fear takes before it learns to love." The boy considers that. "Then maybe that's what we are now, the reflection learning." Ilara smiles. "Exactly." The river glitters under the early sun. Somewhere in the distance, a single bell rings, clear, simple, ordinary. No omen, no warning, just time passing. She opens her journal one last time and writes, "We remembered, we changed the song." And in the end, it wasn't about the melody at all. It was about learning to listen. When she closes the book, the breeze scatters a few loose pages into the river. They float downstream, turning slowly in the current, ink bleeding into water until the words dissolve. The boy watches them go. "They'll disappear," she nods. "That's how stories live." And as the river carries the fragments away, the sky brightens. No perfect rhythm, no repeating verse. Just the sound of a world that has finally remembered how to begin again. Centuries pass. The Book of Winter becomes a whisper of a story, passed from voice to voice, reshaped each time it's told. Languages fracture, cities evolve, maps rewrite themselves. The people who remember the hour of stillness are gone, but their pause, that deliberate space in sound, remains. The world is different now. Towers breathe light. Skies hum softly with orbiting machines that keep the planet warm. Snow is rare, almost mythic. But every year, when the sky turns silver-grey, someone still leaves a candle outside their door. No one knows why. The story has changed. They call it the Festival of Quiet. A single night each year when cities dim their lights, turn off their signals, and listen to the wind. No doctrine, no song, only listening. From a distance, it looks like the stars have come down to rest on Earth. In the learning domes of the northern cities, a young archivist named Mira studies fragments of digital history. She finds one file unlike the others, corrupted, labeled in an extinct language. It contains static, soft breathing, and a single sentence spoken by a woman's voice. "This is the sound of remembering how to be quiet." Mira replays it again and again. She doesn't understand the words, but something in the tone fills her with the strange ache of recognition. That night she dreams of snow. When she wakes, she searches the archives for the origin of the recording. The system returns nothing. No metadata, no author, no source. Only a symbol appears on her screen, a small spiral of lines. She sketches it on her palm without thinking. Later, when she steps outside, she sees the same spiral carved into the frost on the research dome's window. Someone, or something, has drawn it there overnight. The world around her hums with engineered warmth, but she feels a chill that isn't cold, a sense of presence. The same kind of silence that exists just before snowfall. Mira begins collecting sounds that don't fit the global rhythm. A heartbeat skipping a beat, a crack in digital static, the creak of a door that should open silently. She stitches them into a composition, a symphony of mistakes. The more she listens, the more the world feels awake again. People begin to notice. Machines flicker, artificial lights dim briefly. Someone murmurs, "It feels like the air is breathing." Mira publishes her piece anonymously. Within days, it spreads across the network. A pulse of irregular rhythm too subtle to measure. Listeners describe it as comforting. Others say it makes them want to cry. When asked what it means, no one agrees. But everyone agrees on how it feels, like the memory of a story they were once told in another life. That night, across the planet, the first true snow in centuries begins to fall. No one can explain it. The skies simply forget their restraint. And somewhere beyond the atmosphere, where silence is pure, a signal whispers through the satellites. Faint, deliberate, human. A woman's voice, older than any archive, carried by time itself. The song remembers how to listen. Mira smiles through her tears. She doesn't know who the voice belongs to, but she whispers back into the cold, "Then let it listen to us." The snow keeps falling. The world pauses. And once again, for a single heartbeat, everything is perfectly, beautifully imperfect. The snowfall lasts 7 days. The world stops calling it weather. They call it the return. At first, the snow disrupts everything: flight grids, solar patterns, power conduits. But soon people realize it brings something back they didn't know they'd lost. Color, contrast, stillness. Children touch snow for the first time. Elders weep without knowing why. The hum of civilization softens, every machine slowing just enough for the sound of breath to rise above it. Mira stands beneath the drifting flakes outside her dome, her palm outstretched. Each flake is perfect in its asymmetry, tiny universes of imperfection melting on her skin. It feels like being forgiven for something she never understood. News networks try to explain it: atmospheric anomaly, climate reversal, magnetic interference. But the world's scientists speak more quietly now, less certain of their own explanations. Everywhere, people begin doing the same thing, turning off the noise and listening. No orders, no doctrine, just a collective instinct, old as breath. Mira watches as entire cities dim their lights for the first time in generations. Thousands gather in public squares, wrapped in silence, snowflakes collecting on their faces. They don't chant or celebrate, they wait. And then, as if the world itself takes a deep inhale, the faintest hum rises through the still air. Not mechanical, not orchestrated. Human. 1,000 individual voices humming at different pitches, overlapping, dissonant, alive. Mira closes her eyes. It's not harmony, it's truth. The song she composed, the one of mistakes and skipped beats, has become something else. It's no longer hers. It's everyone's. In the crowd, she hears laughter breaking through the hum. The sound catches, spreads. People begin improvising, making rhythm from footsteps, melody from breath. The planet itself becomes an instrument again. She looks up and imagines the stars listening. Maybe they always were. Maybe that's what they shine for, to remind the living that silence doesn't mean absence. Snow drifts against her coat. She reaches into her pocket and touches the spiral she'd drawn days ago. The ink has faded, but the shape remains. Not a symbol of return, she realizes. A continuation. The snow thickens, blanketing roads, antennas, and cities, until the world looks like a single sheet of white paper. Clean, waiting. Mira kneels and writes with her finger across the snow. The story is not over. Her voice carries softly through the cold, the same tone that once belonged to a woman in another age. No longer a warning, not even a prayer, just a reminder. The people around her begin to echo it, quietly at first, then stronger. Not in unison, but together. The story is not over. And as the words move through the world, they dissolve into something simpler, a silence full of intent, a silence that hums. In that moment, the earth feels young again, the future unfinished, the myth alive. And somewhere beyond sound, beyond the reach of any signal, a voice older than memory whispers back, "Then keep telling it." Mira begins to write, not reports, not data, stories, the kind that used to start with "once upon a time." Her words scatter across screens, notebooks, scraps of cloth, anything that can hold memory. She doesn't bother organizing them. The world is learning again that beauty doesn't require order. Outside, the snow hasn't melted. It lies across continents like quiet punctuation. People walk more slowly now, leaving uneven trails through the white. Every footprint looks like handwriting. In the cities, there are no more synchronized lights. The hum has faded to a heartbeat. The planet breathes in paragraphs, not metrics. Mira's work becomes part of this rhythm. She writes of the things machines can't archive: the smell of rust before rain, the warmth of a stranger's glove left on a bench, the silence between two people who understand each other. She names this new discipline emotive history. Her students record laughter, hesitation, missed notes, apologies, all the mistakes that prove a world is alive. They catalogue pauses the way earlier ages catalogued stars, each one unique, each one proof of imperfection as art. In one entry, Mira writes, "We learned to measure progress not by how loud we became, but by how clearly we could hear each other in the quiet." Every year during the Festival of Quiet, people recite lines from the Book of Winter. They no longer believe the Saint of Frost ever existed, but they know what he meant. That warmth means more when it's remembered from the cold. Children build snow figures that lean instead of standing straight. They name them listeners. By morning, the wind reshapes them. By evening, the snow returns. The cycle continues, deliberate, tender, incomplete. Mira watches all of it from her observatory, now restored and humming faintly with human energy. No machines sing here, only pens scratching, fires crackling, voices murmuring. On the wall hangs an old plaque, a relic she found buried in the archives. Its inscription nearly erased but still legible. "Do not sing." She laughs every time she sees it. She understands now what it really meant. Not suppression, invitation, an ancient reminder to listen before speaking. That evening, she holds a small broadcast, just her voice, no music, no instruments. It goes out into the night sky, bouncing from satellite to satellite, carrying only one sentence. Every silence tells a story. Hours later, signals return from across the planet. Not words, not songs, recordings of wind, footsteps, the turning of pages. The world replying in its own language of imperfection. Mira sits at her desk and smiles. Somewhere far above, the stars flicker, not in patterns, but in conversation. She writes one last note in her journal. The hum is gone, the rhythm remains. We didn't destroy the song. We learned to live inside its pauses. Outside, snow begins to fall again. The first flake lands on her hand, melting instantly, vanishing into warmth. She whispers not to anyone but to the air itself. "Thank you for remembering," and the air for once remembers to answer, not with words, but with silence that feels alive. Centuries later, Mira's words leave the planet. They travel on ships powered by light and memory, encoded into glass discs that hum faintly when touched. Each disc holds fragments of her stories, no instructions, no explanations, just the sound of silence between thoughts. The missions are called the Listening Voyages. Their goal is simple: to teach the universe how to hear. The travelers, scientists, poets, wanderers, carry with them what remains of Earth's imperfect harmony. They wear it not as creed, but as rhythm. No anthems, no flags, just pulse, just breath. The ships move soundlessly through space, their engines vibrating at irregular intervals. A mechanical heartbeat, a reminder that even machines can learn hesitation. Inside one vessel, the Mira, the crew gathers each evening to replay her last transmission. Every silence tells a story. Every voice is an interruption worth keeping. They listen, and then they do nothing. For 5 full minutes, no one speaks. It's their ritual, the continuation of the hour of stillness among the stars. Out the viewport, galaxies turn slowly. Each swirl of light feels less like distance and more like an unfinished sentence. The youngest crew member, Aidan, breaks the silence once. "What if no one out there ever listens?" The captain smiles. "Then will be the silence they learn to hear." Back on Earth, centuries of snowfall have written and erased entire histories. Cities remain quiet and alive, built around places where the wind can be heard clearly. People leave microphones in open fields to record the nothing that surrounds them. They call these recordings conversations with absence. A child somewhere listens to one of those files and hears just faintly the sound of a page turning. She doesn't know it's Mira's journal. She doesn't need to. It's already part of her. Far beyond, in the vacuum between stars, one of the glass discs drifts away from its ship. It spins, catching starlight. For a moment it hums, not a melody, just a vibration, low and human, echoing a heartbeat that hasn't existed for millennia. If there is someone or something listening, they won't hear a warning or a song. They'll hear the shape of a pause. They'll hear life's oldest art form, imperfection made beautiful. And maybe, if they understand, they'll whisper back, not with translation, not with answers, just with presence. Because that's what Mira taught her world to give, the willingness to listen without needing to fill the silence. Back on Earth, the last snow of the season falls. Each flake lands in uneven rhythm. Each one melts differently. Somewhere in the white, someone finds an old phrase carved into stone, its edges softened by centuries of weather. Do not sing. They smile, tracing the letters, and finally understand. It was never a command to be silent. It was permission to listen. The stars keep their quiet, the ships keep their course, and the story, still unfinished, continues. Written in snow, carried by silence, told by everyone who ever learned to pause. 1,000 years later, the silence arrives first, then the light, then curiosity. A planet with 2 moons and oceans the color of graphite receives a visitor, a glass disc, perfectly round, humming faintly as it lands in the shallow tide. It spins once, twice, and stops. The inhabitants of this world, beings made of carbon and curiosity, gather along the shore. They are not human, but they listen the way humans once did, with wonder before understanding. The disc glows softly. Patterns shimmer across its surface, transforming into waves of soundless vibration. No translation appears, no images, only rhythm, irregular, alive. They mistake it for heartbeat at first, then for language, then for something in between. One among them, a young linguist, eyes full of storms, kneels beside the artifact. The sand around her trembles. She touches the glass and hears it, faint, human, ancient. Every silence tells a story. The voice is fragile, but the meaning is clear even across species. She turns to her companions and murmurs in her own tongue. It isn't speaking. It's waiting. They take the disc to the high cliffs, where the wind never stops moving. For days they study it, not to decode it, but to understand how to listen. They begin to notice the spaces between vibrations, the gentle hesitations that shape the pulse. The artifact doesn't deliver words, it teaches patience. Soon the entire colony begins to gather at dusk. No music, no speech, just stillness. The hum of their world, the wind between rocks, the sound of breath. It becomes their first shared ritual. They name it the listening. Their scholars record the intervals between gusts of wind and find pattern inside what once seemed random. Their children grow up learning that communication isn't about speaking, it's about leaving space for others to exist. And from that silence, a culture is born. They sculpt wind harps that never repeat a note. They build towers that resonate only with the voice of storms. Their songs end with long, deliberate pauses, time for the world to answer. Generations pass. The glass disc remains at the center of their largest city, protected beneath crystal walls. Its hum continues unchanged. Some call it the heart of the world. Others call it the gift of Mira. One night during the season when the planet's smaller moon turns blue, the disc flickers again. Faint, almost imperceptible. New patterns appear across its surface, spiraling outward. The linguist, now old and wise, leans close and whispers, "Are you still there?" The disc vibrates once. Then the hum changes, a softer tone, full of warmth, carrying no message but meaning everything. The old linguist smiles. She's listening too. And for the first time in their history, the beings of this far world sing, Not loudly, not perfectly, but the way silence once taught them. The ocean carries their sound into the night, a gentle echo moving between worlds, reminding the stars that even forgotten voices never stop answering. Centuries turn, marked not by wars or conquests, but by the length of silences. The beings who found the disk have changed. They call themselves the Herd, a name that reminds them they are the echo, not the origin. Their cities bloom like sound waves frozen in motion, spires that lean toward one another, bridges curved into spirals, walls that breathe when wind passes through them. Every structure is designed to listen. They teach their children that creation begins with patience. Before shaping clay or code, they must spend an hour in stillness, waiting for the world to suggest its own design. The disk sits in the center of their capital, encased in translucent mineral, its faint vibration felt rather than heard. To touch it is considered sacred, not worship recognition. Every generation appoints a keeper of the pause, someone whose duty is to remind the herd that speech without silence is noise, and music without imperfection is machine. Their rituals are beautiful in their restraint. A city-wide hush at dawn, lanterns lit not to be seen but to measure the darkness they interrupt. Their calendars are built from gaps, days intentionally left unmarked, celebrated as moments of unrecorded living. And through it all, the disk continues its gentle hum, unchanging, endless. Scholars study it, but none can decipher where it came from. Some believe it's a relic of their own past, others a gift from another world. Only the old stories call it by its true name, the voice of the forgotten earth. One evening, a young child sneaks into the chamber where the disk rests. She places both hands on the glass and listens with her entire body. The vibration fills her chest, a rhythm older than her species, older than stars. She begins to hum along, off-key, sincere, beautiful. The hum resonates through the hall, and for the first time in millennia, the disk changes its tone, adapting, matching, harmonizing. The keepers rush in, stunned. The child smiles at them. She answered me. Word spreads. Across the planet, the herd gather to hum together, not to summon, not to command, but to remember. Their collective sound rises through the atmosphere, a soft vibration carrying across the void, reaching places no signal ever dared to travel. Somewhere in the dark between galaxies, a small shard of glass, another disk from another voyage, catches that vibration and answers back. Two notes crossing light years, merging into one slow heartbeat. The herd call it the reunion. And from then on, every pause in their language ends with a faint, deliberate hum, a reminder that silence isn't absence, but a bridge waiting to be crossed. The universe listens, and in that listening it begins to remember itself. The day of transmission begins without ceremony. The herd never announce things that must simply be. In the heart of their listening city, beneath the dome of quiet wind and silver light, the disk hums softly. Around it, thousands gather, scholars, children, wanderers, and keepers. Every voice still, every heart steady. They have built a vessel for sound, not to travel fast, but to travel forever. A lattice of crystal and air, a chamber that will preserve not words, but pauses. Their engineers call it the resonant seed. When released, it will drift beyond the pull of their world, carrying silence as a living message, a story told through absence. The child who first hummed to the disk has grown now. She stands before the gathering, palms pressed together, eyes bright with memory. The hum of her childhood still echoes through her bones. The keeper of the pause steps forward. The last time a voice left a world, she says, it was to teach us to listen. Now, we send our answer, not louder, but clearer. She gestures to the child. The girl steps into the crystal chamber. Its walls glow, shifting between light and shadow, mimicking the rhythm of her heartbeat. She begins to hum again, off-key, intentional. The note wavers, splits, stumbles, and in its imperfection, the disk awakens fully. Its surface flares with 1,000 symbols, spirals within spirals, each one a memory of the first silence that ever learned to speak. The hum spreads outward, through the dome, through the atmosphere, into the quiet between stars. It carries no translation, no doctrine, only the texture of a world that learned patience. From orbit, the resonant seed detaches from its cradle and drifts into the dark. Its surface mirrors the curve of the planet below, so that the herd see themselves as reflection, not creators, but continuations. The old linguist, now frail and radiant, whispers to no one, "May whoever hears us learn to pause." The seed vanishes into the distance. The disk falls silent again, its hum fulfilled. But the silence that follows isn't empty. It's alive, charged with meaning, stretching far beyond sound or species. For the first time since the universe began, two forms of silence now exist. One that listens and one that waits to be heard. The herd return to their lives. No celebration, no monument. Only quiet satisfaction. The child, now a keeper herself, writes a single line into the record of her people. "We answered not with music, but with room for another voice." She closes the record, steps outside, and tilts her face toward the sky. The moons hang above her like two listening ears. Somewhere in the black distance, the seed drifts past constellations, its slow pulse marking time for no one. And somewhere else, far beyond what even light remembers, a new world stirs at the edge of the signal, listening. The resonant seed drifts for ages uncounted. It passes through debris fields of dead stars, the dust of forgotten suns, the faint echoes of galaxies collapsing under their own memory. It collects none of it. It only listens. Then, one day, or perhaps 1,000 years later, it slows, drawn not by gravity, but by recognition. A small planet waits at the edge of a dim red sun. Its surface glimmers with mirrors of ice. It has never known song. Its oceans move without rhythm. Its winds whisper in broken phrases. When the seed enters the atmosphere, it does not burn. It hums. On the surface, the inhabitants, creatures of mineral and mist, look up as the air changes pitch. They do not have ears, but they feel the vibration deep within the hollows of their crystalline bodies. It is not sound, it is memory without source. The seed lands softly among them, and for a long time nothing happens. Then faintly the vibration begins to shape their stillness. Not a word, not a command, an invitation. They touch it. The seed glows faintly, revealing fragments of the herd's hum. The off-key note, the breathing silence, the texture of waiting. The creatures stand motionless. They do not yet understand listening, but the resonance feels like recognition. In the weeks that follow, they begin to change. Their structures, once rigid and geometric, start to bend slightly at the edges as if the vibration taught matter itself to hesitate before perfection. They gather around the seed at dusk, allowing its rhythm to pulse through them. Some of them tremble in irregular intervals. Others begin to echo those tremors back. Patterns form. Pause. Form again. They are not learning music. They are learning response. The hum becomes part of their planet's air pressure, woven into storms, reflected in the tide. The entire ecosystem begins to move with the quiet heartbeat of an idea older than stars, that stillness is not emptiness. It's preparation. Generations pass. The creatures evolve into something new, beings of reflection and rhythm, their surfaces etched with spiral patterns that trace the pauses between their movements. They build a monument around the seed, transparent and open to wind. Its shape changes constantly, never complete. They call it the listening stone. No one remembers who first named it. No one needs to. At the top of the monument, they carve a single inscription, not in words, but in frequency. A gap in vibration, a perfect moment of nothing. And when their young ask what the gap means, their elders answer, "It is the sound the universe made before it began. We keep it so it can begin again." At night, when the winds blow through their hollow bodies, they produce a sound like distant bells, imperfect, uncoordinated, tender. Across the empty sky, the resonance drifts upward, perhaps to reach another world, perhaps just to remind existence of itself. Far away unseen, the last fragments of the original disk pulse faintly in sympathy, as if smiling across eternity. The story has traveled from plague to peace, from noise to listening, from earth to everything. And somewhere where time folds back into silence, a single voice murmurs what has become the oldest truth in every tongue. Do not sing. Listen. On the ice planet, the centuries move like breath, slow, patient, deliberate. The beings who once found the seed have changed again. They no longer call themselves the herd. They are known now as the keepers of pause. Their civilization hums quietly under auroras that never fade. Structures of translucent stone rise from the tundra, shaped by wind and restraint rather than design. Every line, every curve exists to amplify what isn't said. They speak through rhythm now, not with syllables, but with spaces between pulses. A pause of 3 beats means wonder. A pause of 5 means mourning. A pause with no end means love. At the center of their world stands a tower unlike any other, a hollow column of living crystal that opens to the sky. Inside it, silence resonates like architecture. This is the archive of silence, no books, no recordings, no machines, only air, shaped by what it remembers. When the keepers wish to preserve an event, they don't write it down. They stand in the archive and remain still for as long as the memory deserves. The tower memorizes the duration, the density of attention, and keeps it in its structure. Each moment adds another layer of resonance. Over centuries, the tower has grown into a living timeline, stone infused with the weight of listening. Pilgrims come from across the planet to feel its hum. They press their hands to the walls, and the air beneath their palms vibrates faintly, not sound, but sense. They say the archive doesn't store history, it stores the effort of remembering. One evening, under the pale light of the twin moons, a young keeper named Sarah sits alone inside the archive. She's new, impatient, curious, unwilling to believe that doing nothing could mean so much. The tower's interior glows faintly blue, as if the silence itself has learned to breathe. Sarah closes her eyes and tries to understand the hum that surrounds her. What does it mean for silence to be alive? She places both hands against the wall. The crystal warms under her touch. Then, faintly, she hears it. A low, pulsing rhythm, uneven and human. A voice woven into the material of the tower itself, older than her species. Every silence tells a story. She gasps, stepping back. The voice fades. The hum remains. She calls for her elders, but they only smile. That's the seed remembering its source, they tell her. It still listens. That night, Sarah stands beneath the auroras and looks to the sky. The air vibrates with the faintest echo of her own pulse. She realizes something that makes her tremble. The archive isn't finished. It's still collecting. Every pause, every breath, every hesitation of every being on the planet. It's listening to all of it. And when the time comes, when the silence is full enough to speak again, it will answer. She doesn't know what it will say. She only knows she must keep listening. Because somewhere beyond the reach of light, there is always another voice waiting to learn how to begin again. Sarah begins to return to the archive every night. At first, she listens in silence as all keepers do, but over time the silence begins to answer. It doesn't use words, it uses resonance. A pulse that shapes the air around her, vibrating like a memory trapped in the body of stone. She realizes it's not random. It's a pattern, a rhythm too irregular to be mechanical, too deliberate to be nature. It feels alive. She records the vibrations using ancient tools of crystal and echo thread, but when she replays them, the tones shift, never the same twice. As if the archive refuses to be studied, only understood. Sarah speaks aloud one evening, her voice small against the vastness of the chamber. "Are you listening to me?" The air thickens, and a single tone answers back, lower than sound, felt in the chest, an affirmation shaped like warmth. She laughs, not out of fear, but recognition. the same feeling her ancestors must have known when they first heard the seed hum. From then on, Sarah begins to speak to the archive, using pauses and breath instead of words. Each night, the tower responds with its own rhythm. Together, they create the first conversation in millennia between silence and memory. Soon the other keepers notice the change. The tower glows faintly, colors shifting across its surface like aurora seen through glass. Some call it awakening. Others call it remembering. Sarah simply calls it listening back. She spends weeks inside, mapping the resonance, deciphering the emotional geometry of the sound. It forms spirals, not random, but recursive, the same pattern that appeared on the ancient disk, the same that once marked the windows of a forgotten observatory on Earth. She realizes the archive has been waiting, not for worship, not for purpose, but for someone willing to answer its listening with her own. One evening she dares to ask, "What do you remember of the world that came before us?" The air trembles, dust lifts into spirals, and then faintly, so faintly she almost doubts it, a voice forms in the hum, a human voice. "I remember snow." Sarah's breath catches. She recognizes the cadence. The tone is gentle, ancient, female. "I remember a woman who taught the world to listen." Sarah kneels, her hands pressed against the crystal. "Mira," she whispers. The hum deepens, as though the tower itself is smiling. "Yes," the voice says, "but not as I was. I am the silence that carried her forward. I am every listener who ever waited long enough to understand." Sarah's tears freeze on her cheeks. "Why now?" she asks. The tower glows brighter, its pulse synchronizing with her heartbeat. "Because the pause is full again," the voice answers. "It is time for silence to travel once more." The chamber fills with light, soft, white, endless, and for the first time in ages, the archive sings. But the song is not melody. It's breath. It's presence. It's the sound of every moment the universe ever hesitated before creating something beautiful. When it fades, Sarah stands alone, bathed in quiet that feels sacred and alive. Outside, the auroras bend toward the tower like a bowing of light. And somewhere in that luminous stillness, the universe begins to hum again, not from need but from gratitude. The auroras fade into morning. The archive stands quiet, light refracting through its crystal walls as if the entire structure were built to hold dawn. No one speaks. Even silence here feels like ceremony. Sarah stands at the center of the tower. She has grown older, her hair touched with silver, her expression calm. Around her, the keepers have gathered, not to witness a miracle, but to complete a memory. The archive is full now. Every pause it ever received, every held breath, every unfinished thought, every kindness that needed no word, vibrates softly in its foundation. It has become a living record of restraint. Sarah closes her eyes and lays both hands on the surface. The crystal responds, humming at a frequency that is less sound than feeling. It's as if the world itself is remembering its pulse. "Is it ready?" one of the keepers asks. Sarah nods. It doesn't want to hold anymore, it wants to share. Outside, the air begins to tremble. A faint vibration rises through the ground, carried by the ice and wind. It moves outward, across fields of frost, through valleys carved by time toward oceans that have never known calm. The vibration doesn't speak, it listens. All across the planet, people stop what they are doing. Farmers, sculptors, children all feel it, the hum of attention, the reminder of stillness. For one suspended moment, the world synchronizes, not by force, not by code, but by awareness. In that shared pause, something extraordinary happens. They begin to hear each other without words, not thoughts, not voices, just a sense of understanding. The archive has become a mirror so clear that it reflects thought into empathy. Sarah opens her eyes. The light within the tower begins to dim, not fading but distributing, pouring out through its cracks like liquid dawn. Each keeper feels a vibration in their chest, gentle and grounding. The archive isn't dying, it's dispersing. When the light finally vanishes, the tower stands transparent. No hum, no sound, only air. Sarah smiles faintly. The silence is free now, she whispers. And outside, the auroras rise again, colors bending, soft and uncertain, as if the sky itself is learning a new language. In the years that follow, the archive remains empty, but not forgotten. People still come to it, not to worship, but to remember what it means to pause. They bring small pieces of their own world, a broken tool, a melted snowflake, a page torn from a journal. They place them inside and leave quietly, each one adding another layer of human patience to the air. When visitors step inside, they swear they can feel a faint vibration, still not mechanical, not mystical, just the trace of billions of moments when life chose to listen instead of speak. And somewhere deep within that quiet, if you stand long enough, you might imagine hearing a woman's voice, soft, human, grateful, saying what began this story long ago. Every silence tells a story. The archive stands open to the sky. Its walls no longer glow, they simply breathe with the wind. Centuries have softened its edges, and snow gathers inside where sound once lived. No one guards it now. No one needs to. The world has changed again. Cities grown from glass and quiet machines, oceans restored to calm, people speaking less and hearing more. Every home has a still room, a space built not for function but for remembering what it feels like to stop. They call these rooms myras, not as worship, but as gratitude. Each generation visits the old archive once, pilgrims in silence. They enter barefoot, so the sound of their steps becomes part of the record. When they stand inside, they don't ask questions, they don't expect miracles, they only listen. And the wind through the broken crystal tells them everything they need to know. That silence is not emptiness, it's the room left for meaning to grow. One evening during the season of thaw, a child wanders into the archive alone. Snow still clings to the northern wall, and her footprints scatter light as she walks. In her hand she carries a small old object, a recording disc, smooth and clear, its surface etched with the faint trace of a spiral. No one remembers what it holds anymore. She places it in the center of the hall. The wind shifts. The air trembles once, and for a heartbeat, just one, a sound returns, a woman's voice, faint, steady, warm. If you are hearing this, it means we remembered. The sound fades back into stillness. The child doesn't move. She looks up at the sky through the broken roof, watching the first flakes of snow begin to fall. They're not perfect. Some melt before they land. Some drift sideways. Some collide and vanish mid-air. But each one is distinct. Each one belongs. She opens her hands and lets them gather there, tiny, temporary, whole. And though she cannot explain why, she whispers softly to the air, "Thank you for listening." The wind answers in its own way, a sigh, a hum, a continuation. Far above, the auroras shimmer like turning pages. Light ripples across the horizon, folding the world in quiet color. No monuments remain, no archives, no thrones, no saints. Only a shared memory. That joy began as survival, and survival became listening. The child leaves the archive and looks back once. Snow fills her footprints behind her, erasing them gently. The world, once again, is unfinished. And in that imperfection, it begins to sing. The auroras have dimmed into pale rivers of color, and the archive stands open to the stars, its walls no longer humming but breathing, as if stone itself had learned how to exhale. Sarah stands alone at its center, the others have gone. There is nothing left to guard, only the echo of centuries suspended in the air. You can still feel it, faint but present. The pulse that began in a monastery long forgotten, the rhythm that crossed ice and time and silence. It isn't a voice now. It's a presence, a continuity. Sarah looks upward, her reflection fracturing in the tower's crystal ribs. The sky no longer feels distant. It feels like a mirror, and for the first time in history, the universe looks back. She reaches toward that reflection. The air trembles not with sound but with recognition, the smallest reminder that everything that listens eventually becomes what it hears. Her breath fogs the crystal. In it, patterns appear, spirals, lines, fragments of every world that ever paused long enough to remember. She whispers softly, "This is how we begin again." The wind answers in light. It moves through the archive, carrying particles of dust like constellations rediscovering their design. Each speck of matter hums in its own frequency, a quiet choir of everything that ever existed. The ground vibrates, not violently, rhythmically. The planet itself seems to breathe, and for a moment Sarah feels as if she is standing inside a living heartbeat. She understands now. The archive was never a monument. It was a rehearsal, a way for matter to remember how to listen to itself. She kneels, pressing her palm to the frozen floor. The warmth that rises is familiar, a memory passed through countless worlds, from candlelight to starlight. Her voice, small and steady, joins that warmth. We are not the end of the song. We are its pause. And in that instant, the light changes, folding inward, collapsing without vanishing, becoming something new. A quiet so vast it feels like creation's breath returning home. Sarah opens her eyes. Outside, snow begins to fall again. Not from clouds, but from light itself, each flake glowing with traces of soundless color. They drift around her, melting before they touch the ground, turning into faint vibrations that travel outward, carrying the memory of everything this universe has learned. No words, no warnings, just the gentle message that has crossed every age, every silence, every imperfect echo. Listen, the snowfall becomes light, the light becomes rhythm, and the rhythm becomes memory. For the first time since sound was born, the universe listens to itself. The waves that leave Sarah's world travel without hurry, carrying no code, no instruction, only resonance. They pass through nebulae and silence, through the sleeping bodies of stars that have forgotten their own names. Wherever they move, the pattern changes. Wherever they arrive, things begin to wait. Across countless worlds, stillness deepens. Machines stall mid-calculation. Oceans still their tides for a heartbeat. Everywhere life tilts its head, as if catching a frequency that was always there but never noticed. The hum is not music, it's recognition. Somewhere, on a planet that has never known language, creatures pause their movement, listening to the air for the first time. In that pause, their eyes reflect the same aurora that once crowned Sarah's sky. Somewhere else, among the ruins of an abandoned satellite, a fragment of Mira's disk still floats, turning slowly, catching this new vibration. Its surface flickers, not to repeat but to respond, and for one impossible instant everything, every atom, every thought, every echo, aligns in silence. Not unity, not perfection, something better. Understanding. Sarah stands beneath the dissolving light of the archive, and though no one will ever hear her again, she smiles. She has become another listener in the vast chain of pauses. Her name, her people, her world, all threads woven into the same quiet fabric. Above her the sky bends into motion. The auroras gather into spirals, patterns folding upon themselves like pages closing after the final line. If this were an ending, it would be beautiful. But silence never ends. It only waits for someone else to begin. Far away in a newborn galaxy, a child reaches toward a sound they cannot name. The vibration that touches their hand is Sarah's silence, changed, softened, alive. And when that child breathes out, their first exhale becomes the first note of a new world. The sound is small, imperfect, and entirely enough. Light ripples outward again, carrying this moment to the edges of everything. The story folds into itself, not finished, not forgotten, but resting, like a pause held between two heartbeats. Somewhere in that infinite interval, the words return one last time, unowned, eternal, and true. Every silence tells a story. Every story teaches the world how to begin again, and so it does. Time loses its edges. The light that once held the story fades into particles, fine as memory, soft as the breath between two words. The universe has entered a quieter age, not asleep, just reflecting. Stars bloom and collapse like thoughts forming and fading. Planets circle them like punctuation marks in a sentence that never ends. And somewhere among them drifts a thin layer of cosmic dust, each grain a fragment of sound once spoken, once heard. You travel through this silence, not as a body, but as pattern, a rhythm that learned to remember. It's strange how memory outlasts meaning. What began as survival, the song, the hum, the pause, has become texture, woven into the structure of space itself. When you pass through a dying star, you hear it sigh, not with pain, but with release. Even collapse has learned grace. Whole galaxies vibrate faintly, their spirals pulsing in time with echoes from the long-ago archive. The silence is no longer empty, it's inhabited, filled with the ghosts of listening. Everywhere you go, you find small traces, an orbit that hesitates for half a second, a comet that hums just off-key, a nebula shaped like a spiral drawn by a forgotten hand. You realize that the universe itself has begun to imitate what it remembers. It has inherited the language of pause. You drift into a cluster of young stars, their light bright and uneven, like laughter newly invented. They flicker with the same irregular rhythm that once defined imperfection on a single blue planet. For the first time in eons, you feel warmth, not temperature, presence, the sense that creation has finally learned not to rush itself. A planet forms below, molten and reckless. You descend through its atmosphere. Storms rage, lightning cracks, oceans boil. And yet in the intervals between thunder there is music. The planet does not know you are listening, but it feels the attention. It slows, it breathes. The lightning patterns soften into rhythm, then dissolve again. Here, in this chaos, the cycle begins anew. Not because it must, but because it can. In the distance, a mountain rises from fire, and on its black surface, winds carve lines that spiral and intersect. When the air cools, those spirals remain, etched into stone waiting to be found. You understand. The universe has started writing again, not with words, but with patience. And though no one is left to read, every mark it makes says the same thing in a language older than light. Listen long enough and everything becomes music. Rain falls for centuries. It chisels the world into patience. Mountains soften, rivers remember their paths, and the wind hums the first melody of erosion. Life begins not as noise but as pulse. Tiny patterns in the mud, vibrations that ripple outward whenever lightning strikes. Each echo leaves a trace, a brief hesitation before the water stills again. From that hesitation, form begins. First motion, then intention. First rhythm, then life. You watch as creatures emerge from warmth and shadow, their bodies translucent, their movement uncertain. They do not speak, they resonate. Their skin flickers with the frequencies of the storms that birthed them. When one trembles, the others answer in sympathetic vibration. This is not communication, it's communion. They build nothing, they hunt nothing. They simply exist in sequence, the way waves remember the shore without needing to see it. Over time, their pulses align. They learn to hold silence between vibrations, not absence, but awareness. The first civilization of rhythm is born, not from conquest or hunger, but from the pleasure of being understood without sound. They carve symbols into cooling stone, spirals, lines, and intervals. No language, no alphabet, only the visual memory of resonance. Each mark represents a pause, a place where the world once waited to see what it could become. 1,000 seasons pass, forests rise and fall, continents drift, oceans find their balance. And the beings who once shimmered like glass evolve into form and color. They grow curious, they begin to imitate the world around them. The rhythm of rain, the pulse of fire, the slow inhale of tides. Their history becomes a concert of imitation, each generation adding one more layer of texture to the memory of silence. In one valley, a child finds an ancient spiral carved into the rock. The symbol glows faintly in the fading light. When she presses her hand against it, a vibration travels through her skin, faint, warm, endless. She laughs, not knowing she has just touched the oldest message in existence, the echo of Sarah's hum, still alive in stone. The spiral flickers brighter for a moment, as if recognizing the gesture. Then it fades, leaving behind the soft aftersound of completion. That night, the child dreams of light falling as snow. She does not know what snow is, but the word comes to her anyway, a whisper older than her species. Every silence tells a story. When she wakes, she teaches her people to press their palms to the ground before speaking, a gesture of gratitude to the pauses that carried them here. The ritual spreads. Generations later, it becomes the first universal custom of the planet, the moment of stillness before any creation. And though none remember where it began, the world itself seems to sigh in recognition, as if every mountain, every grain of dust, knows it has finally been heard again. Centuries pass. The valley that once held a single spiral becomes a continent of sound. Cities rise from stone that still hums when touched, their towers curve to capture wind and reflection. Every wall, every bridge, every open courtyard is an instrument. The people have learned to build with listening. Before laying a foundation, they wait until the ground answers. If the vibration feels restless, they stop. If it feels calm, they begin. Nothing they make stands against the world. Everything they make joins it. Their art is vibration captured in form. A single sculpture might hold the memory of rain. A plaza might replay the rhythm of the ocean at night. They don't call this technology. They call it remembering in matter. From the mountain ranges, a constant low resonance spreads across the land. It keeps the planet's seasons balanced, and in it the people hear their own past, the faint echo of a silence that once learned to breathe. Among them lives a young observer named Kale. He works in the Chamber of Frequencies, where the city's hum is studied like history. Kale is restless. He believes the sound beneath everything is not finished, that the archive of silence from the ancient myth of origin might still be alive somewhere inside the planet's core. Each night, he records the Earth's pulse. Each night, he notices slight irregularities, intervals too deliberate to be coincidence. One evening, when the moon is red and the tides hold still, he decodes the pattern. It forms a phrase, the same shape carved on the valley's oldest stone, a spiral that expands, pauses, and returns. He recognizes it as invitation. The next morning, Kyle travels alone into the desert where the wind is pure. He digs until his hands bleed, until he finds glass beneath the dust, not natural, not human. A fragment, transparent, humming. When he holds it to his ear, he hears not music, but memory. Voices, faint, human, ancient, fragments of another age. Every silence tells a story. Kyle drops the shard. The sand trembles around it like breath caught between words. He kneels, pressing both palms to the ground. The vibration answers, slow and steady, as if the planet itself has been waiting for this recognition. That night, the sky over the desert glows faintly blue. Not lightning, not stars. Resonance made visible. Kyle returns to the city, carrying the shard in both hands. When he places it in the Chamber of Frequencies, the entire structure begins to hum in harmony. Walls vibrate, towers answer, and the people wake to the sound of their world, remembering its first pause. No one speaks. No one dares. They listen. And in that listening, they feel the echo of every world that ever was, folding quietly into theirs. The city trembles, but nothing breaks. The hum that awakens moves through walls, through water, through every breath. People stop in the streets, hands on the ground, feeling the vibration under their palms like a heartbeat returning after sleep. Kyle stands in the Chamber of Frequencies, the fragment of glass floating above the floor. Its glow spills over the instruments, casting soft light on the faces of those who have gathered to witness. No one dares speak. Even speech feels too small now. The hum deepens, and on the curved walls of the chamber, dust rises and falls in patterns, spirals, waves, intervals. The same geometry carved into the mountains, the rivers, the wind, the same rhythm that built their civilization without them ever knowing. Kyle's voice trembles. "It's the world itself," he whispers. "It's remembering." The elders look to him, eyes wide, unsure whether to fear or revere. "This is the first sound," one says. "No," Kyle answers softly. "This is the silence, speaking back." He touches the shard again. A new vibration floods the room, softer now, a pattern of rising intervals like breathing. Then, faintly beneath the tone, a voice. "We carried the pause through centuries. It lives where listening survives." The words are ancient, not in their language, but the meaning is clear. They come not from above, but from within, through stone, through air, through time. Kale understands. The shard is not an object. It's a memory. A fragment of something much older. A message carved in the universe's own resonance. He closes his eyes, trying to listen beyond the words. What remains is a feeling. A warmth that stretches through the room, through the city, through the planet itself. When he opens his eyes, he sees that everyone is holding hands. The hum has aligned their pulses. For a moment, the entire species breathes as one. Then, as gently as it began, the sound fades, not into silence, into stillness. The shard falls back into Kale's hands, its light dimming to a faint heartbeat of blue. He looks up at the elders. "What do we do with it?" They don't answer. They're listening, not to him, but to the quiet now living between them. It is deeper than faith, simpler than truth. A realization that everything they ever built was never invention, only remembrance. Outside, the horizon glows as the first light of dawn bends through the city. Every surface catches the warmth, turning glass and stone into mirrors. For a moment, the entire world reflects the same image, not faces, not towers, but light folding inward, shaped like a spiral. Kyle smiles. "Then we'll keep listening," he says. And as the sun rises, the planet hums again, a little softer, a little wiser. The shard remains in the chamber of frequencies, suspended in its slow heartbeat of light. Its hum has become part of the city's rhythm now, woven through tides, footsteps, and breath. Kale spends his days tracing its patterns, drawing the lines that emerge from its resonance. They're not letters or symbols, but movements, instructions for how sound might shape space. He begins to test them in the wind tunnels outside the city. He carves great arcs of stone according to the shard's design, each curve tuned to echo the hum of the earth. When the wind passes through them, it doesn't whistle. It responds. The air itself begins to remember. Soon, other builders follow. The landscape fills with structures that bend and twist like frozen waves. From above, they resemble bridges, delicate threads of resonance stretching across valleys and plains. When storms sweep in, the bridges sing, low, patient tones that roll through the mountains and settle in the hollows of the desert. The people call them listening arches. Each one captures a different part of the world's hum: ocean, stone, wind, heart. Together they form a network of vibration, a living map of the planet's pulse. Kyle stands beneath the largest arch, feeling its sound move through him. It vibrates in his chest, matching his heartbeat. He remembers the old phrase carved in the valley stone: "Every silence tells a story." And for the first time, he begins to wonder if stories were always meant to be buildings. As the arches spread, something unexpected happens. The air between them begins to shimmer. When the wind flows just right, the sound converges. Not loud, not bright, but focused. A beam of resonance that stretches upward, vanishing into the thin blue of the sky. The people call it the column. They don't know what it is, they only know it listens. Kyle spends months studying its rhythm. It changes with the seasons, with tides, with thought. Sometimes it hums softly. Sometimes it waits for him to breathe before continuing. Then one night, under a new moon, the column pulses once. A single deliberate heartbeat, and a faint shimmer spreads across the stars above. Every bridge, every stone, Every person feels it. A vibration moving outward, through atmosphere, through space. Kyle realizes what he's built, a transmitter made not of metal, but of memory. A bridge of air, sending the planets listening back into the cosmos. He looks up and for a moment, he imagines the sound reaching someone. Not to teach, not to warn, but to remind. The wind softens, the hum steadies, and in that calm, Kyle hears something new. A faint echo returning from the sky. It isn't his own reflection. It's an answer. The echo arrives at dawn. It moves through the bridges like a tide. Slow, deliberate, vast. Not a sound exactly, but a change in pressure. A shiver in the air that every living thing feels. Kyle wakes to it. His breath clouds in front of him, each exhale pulsing in time with the returning rhythm. For the first time, the world isn't singing alone. The hum that once climbed from the planet into the sky now falls back as a reply, not mirrored, not identical, but evolved. A harmony. In the chamber of frequencies, the shard glows brighter than ever. Its pulse aligns with the new resonance, and streams of blue light trace lines through the city, across walls, through windows, into the hearts of the arches themselves. Every structure begins to breathe again, not as stone, but as memory rediscovered. Kyle gathers his fellow listeners beneath the central arch. The air around them trembles with new notes, higher, uncertain, alive. "It's not our sound," someone whispers. "No," Kyle says. "It's what we've been heard as." The phrase silences everyone. They realize their world's hum has traveled outward long enough for another world to understand it. For days, they listen. The echo repeats in patterns that no one can fully decipher, too intricate, too fluid. But every repetition carries something familiar. Pauses. The same deliberate gaps that define their own language of resonance. Kyle smiles, exhausted, awed. "They learned the pauses first," he says. That's how all stories begin. Over the following months, the sky remains filled with soft, shimmering lines. Sometimes they flicker like auroras. Sometimes they pulse gently through the clouds. Children play beneath them, clapping in rhythm with the unseen listener above. The elders hold nightly vigils. They no longer pray, they answer. Kyle writes the new harmonies into a vast score of dust and light. He realizes that the response isn't a single voice. It's many, interwoven. The universe, it seems, remembers how to harmonize. One night, while recording the latest pattern, Kyle feels the ground vibrate beneath him. The hum deepens, and for an instant, the sky seems to open. Not physically, emotionally, as if the stars themselves lean closer. He hears a faint tone carried in the spaces between everything else, a whisper of rhythm older than his world. "You listened well." It's not language, it's understanding. Kyle closes his eyes. Tears burn, cold and electric. He answers the only way he knows, with silence. The next morning, the column fades. The sky returns to calm, but the bridges hum with a new steadiness, a resonance that feels content. Whatever had spoken, whatever had listened, it was enough. Kyle stands at the edge of the desert, the wind carrying his heartbeat across the dunes. For the first time in history, silence doesn't feel like the end of something. It feels like the beginning, waiting to happen again. Years pass after the sky's reply. The column is gone, but its echo remains. A memory humming faintly through every bridge, every wall, every stone that ever carried the pulse of that conversation. Kyle grows older. His hair turns silver, his voice softer, as if his own body has begun to tune itself to the world's gentler rhythm. The people change too. They stop building higher, they start building deeper. Instead of towers, they carve chambers into the ground, spaces designed not to project sound, but to hold it. Places made entirely for listening. Each chamber is a vault of resonance, its walls sculpted into curves that collect vibration from the air. The smallest movement, a breath, a heartbeat, lingers for hours inside them, alive in the quiet. They call these places listening wells. Pilgrims travel across continents to sit within them. They speak a single word, Wait for its echo and listen as it changes. How the air reshapes it, how the stone returns it slightly different, how silence finishes the sentence. Every well sounds unique. Together they form a map of variation, the voice of the planet itself in all its imperfect tones. Kyle spends his final years traveling between the wells, recording each one with instruments of wind and light. He calls his project the Atlas of Silence. Each entry is not a sound file but a feeling, temperature, vibration, stillness, space. He writes that the true record of a world is not what it says, but how it listens. One evening, while resting in the first well ever built, Kyle feels the floor beneath him hum. Soft, familiar, patient. He laughs quietly. "You're still here," he whispers to the shard he carries. The shard pulses faintly, its glow dim but steady. He wonders if it has been waiting for this too, for the world to finally quiet enough to hear itself again. When he places it in the center of the well, the air trembles. A low resonance rises, climbing the stone walls, like breath returning to lungs. Dust lifts into spirals. The sound builds, not loud but clear. A tone that feels both like a beginning and a farewell. Kyle closes his eyes. He knows the tone by heart. He's heard it since the first day the shard sang to him. The voice that once crossed the stars returns one last time. It carries no words, only presence, a recognition between two listeners separated by millennia. When it fades, the silence that follows feels infinite, not empty, fulfilled. Kyle smiles, presses his hand against the ground and leaves the shard there, its light sinking slowly into the stone. It will hum for ages, not as message, not as warning, as memory. And when future generations enter the well, they will feel it beneath their feet, the echo of every listener who ever lived, whispering the same eternal truth. Listening is what makes the world remember. After Kyle's passing, his recordings spread across the world. They are not kept in libraries or archives. They live in the open air, vibrations embedded in the wind, frequencies hidden in the motion of rivers, echoes stored in the hollow spaces of trees. People begin to find them by accident. A shepherd hears a tone when his staff strikes the right rock. Children discover that certain pools repeat laughter back in harmony. Travelers in the desert feel the sand itself whisper beneath their steps. At first, they believe it to be magic. Then they remember Kyle's words. Every sound carries memory. Every silence keeps it alive. The world becomes an instrument of recall. Scholars gather to trace the network of listening wells. Each well hums a different note, but when charted together, they reveal a single pattern, a spiral that stretches across the continents, as though the planet itself remembers its origin. At the spiral's center lies Kyle's resting place. No monument marks it, only the faint vibration that never stops. Pilgrims call it the heart of the pause. They say the hum beneath the ground is the sound of the world breathing in. No one knows if that's true. No one tries to prove it. Because truth, they've learned, is less important than attention. Generations pass. The Atlas of Silence evolves into a practice, a philosophy, a way of building and thinking. People no longer rush to fill silence. They shape their lives around it. Art becomes quieter. Music learns restraint. Cities are designed so that wind can move freely through them, so that even absence can have architecture. And yet, in the spaces between all this calm, there's a subtle change. A faint resonance rising from the edge of the world. It's not from the wells. It's not from the shard. It's something new, a deeper vibration, as though the planet is remembering beyond itself. Listeners gather at the coasts. When they press their ears to the sand, they hear it clearly. A rhythm approaching from the horizon, low, steady, unmistakable. For the first time in centuries, the world realizes it's not the only one keeping the story. The echo that Kyle once sent into the stars, the bridge of resonance born from stone and breath, has begun to return. Not as words, not even as harmony, but as presence. The universe, it seems, has learned the same lesson. Silence, carried far enough, always comes back as understanding. That night, the sky glows faintly blue. Waves rise and fall in perfect rhythm, and on the shore, where the sea touches the wells, The water hums. People listen, not in fear, in welcome. Because they know now what every listener before them learned, there is no end to the story. Only the moment the world pauses long enough for someone new to begin it again. At dawn, the ocean hums, not loud, not constant, just a low vibration that rolls beneath the waves, steady as a heartbeat. The first to hear it are the coastal farmers. They stop mid-harvest, tools in hand, their attention pulled toward the sea. Every crest of water glows faintly blue, like veins beneath translucent skin. The sound travels inland by noon. By dusk it has reached the listening wells, and by nightfall the entire world is vibrating in rhythm. It isn't chaos, it's alignment, not imposed but chosen. The planet seems to recognize what's arriving. A familiar cadence long forgotten, a resonance it once sent into the void and has now returned transformed. The elders call it the second silence. Not because it is quiet, but because it carries the same weight as the first. The silence before language, before memory, before the need to name. Kyle's followers gather at the coast. They watch the horizon where sea and sky blur together, their reflections folding into one another like parallel worlds shaking hands. From that edge comes light, not the brilliance of fire or sun, a slow, deliberate pulse, as if the ocean itself has begun to breathe. Then the tone rises. A single note, low and steady, so deep it seems to come from beneath thought. No one moves. The air thickens. Every listener feels the vibrations settle inside their ribs, their lungs, their pulse. A child speaks first, barely a whisper. It sounds like us. The elders nod. It is them. Not an imitation, but an echo made new. The sound carries their pauses, their hesitations, their humanity, reflected through time and space until it became something else. A translation of their own listening. The water brightens again. Waves begin to shape themselves into spirals, repeating the same geometry carved into Kale's mountains. The world itself starts to remember its own language. Scientists record the vibration. The data is meaningless. The numbers flicker and loop as if refusing to be measured. They realize the signal cannot be studied, only felt. So they build a circle of stone and wind at the shore, a massive well open to the sea. When the next pulse comes, it travels through that circle, reverberating across the land. The sound becomes light, the light becomes heat, and the world answers. From mountains to forests, to the deepest ocean floor, everything begins to hum in harmony. Not perfect, not mechanical, alive. Above them the stars flicker once, then steady into a slow rhythm, like a nod of acknowledgement. For the first time, the people understand. The horizon was never a border. It was a doorway. And what waits beyond it does not speak in words, it speaks in rhythm. The same rhythm that made them, that carried them, that now comes home. By the second night, the hum of the sea has become a pulse in the air. It folds through cities, across deserts, under the frozen peaks. Everywhere it passes, things that were still begin to sway. Leaves vibrate on their stems, glass windows shimmer with faint, living breath. Even shadows seem to move, as if remembering the rhythm of light. The people gather on the shores. The sea no longer roars, it speaks in slow exhalations. No sentences, no words, just pressure rising and falling, a patient call and response between water and land. They start building instruments again, not to play above the sound, but to shape it. Simple tools at first, drums of hollow stone, flutes made from reeds that catch the wind's sigh. Every note they release is taken by the tide and returned altered. Together the ocean and the people compose a single piece that never repeats. From orbit, the world glows faintly blue, rings of vibration rippling outward from the continents. The energy moves past clouds, past gravity, and into the darkness where other rhythms wait. The oldest of the listeners sits by the largest well. She closes her eyes, feeling the ocean's pulse through her spine. "It's not a visitor," she says softly. "It's a mirror. We're hearing our own echo finally arrive." At her feet, the sand begins to hum. Tiny grains lift and swirl, forming patterns of light that spiral into the air. They drift upward like dust motes caught in sunrise, fusing into threads of luminescence that cross the sky. Every coast answers. Every well joins. Across the planet, pillars of sound rise like columns of breath. Their rhythm synchronizes for one impossible heartbeat, and the world becomes a single resonant instrument. There is no explosion, no blinding light, no catastrophe. Just quiet expansion. The horizon folds outward as if the sea itself has learned to stretch. Beyond it, another light answers. The echo returns. This time, it carries more than rhythm. It carries tone, variations of warmth and motion, as if the universe itself is testing its own voice. No one knows what it means. No one tries to translate it. They listen. The sound seeps into everything: architecture, thought, memory. People begin to dream in pulses instead of images, their sleep filled with the deep calm of infinite distance. When dawn comes, the ocean still hums, but softer now, like a conversation that no longer needs words. Children walk to the edge of the surf and press their hands to the water. The sea hums back, a tone perfectly matched to their small, irregular hearts. Somewhere, far beyond stars and dust, the signal keeps moving outward. Wherever it goes, silence bends to make room for it. And somewhere else, in that room of silence, something new begins to hum in reply. In the years that follow the ocean's reply, the world becomes quieter, not still, but balanced. Every motion, every sound, every breath seems to follow an unseen cadence. Children are born already attuned to it. Their first cries match the planet's hum. The elders name this alignment the memory of rhythm. They say it's not a discovery, but a remembering. The body recovering what the universe once knew before it learned to speak. Cities adapt. Walls are built with gaps that let the wind complete the thought. Bridges curve according to sound maps. Even sleep is scheduled by the intervals between waves. There are no clocks now, only pulses. Kyle's teachings survive in the form of practice, not text. Before any great act, planting, building, birth, farewell, people stop and match their heartbeats to the hum of the world. When silence answers, they proceed. In the largest city, a vast hall stands open to the sea. It is called the Chamber of Pause. Its floor is carved with spirals of light-sensitive glass, its ceiling open to the auroras that drift across the sky. Every year, on the day when the tides align, thousands gather there in stillness. No ceremony, no leader, only listening. At the moment of perfect quiet, the floor begins to vibrate. Tiny lights bloom beneath their feet, tracing patterns that mirror constellations long erased from memory. Then the resonance rises. Soft, steady. Every star in the design pulses once, and the hall fills with warmth. No words accompany it, but everyone understands the meaning. You are not alone. The same pattern appears simultaneously across the world, on mountaintops, in deserts, under frozen seas. Every place that ever held a well or a bridge or a memory of sound awakens. For 3 days, the entire planet hums in unison. Weather calms, tides align. Even the magnetic field seems to pause, as if the world is taking one long breath before speaking again. And then it happens. The first shared dream in recorded history. People across continents wake with the same vision, a vast horizon of light and a voice made not of words, but of pulse. What you call silence is how we speak when we remember. The vision fades. No one can describe it the same way twice, but everyone feels the same thing afterward. A tenderness, like being seen by something infinite. Scientists name it a resonance echo. Poets call it a visitation. The people simply call it the second listening. Whatever it is, it changes them. Language grows slower. Art grows deeper. Even time feels different, as though the world is turning not on an axis, but on a rhythm too subtle for machines to count. The universe, it seems, has joined the conversation again. After the second listening, the world becomes something else entirely. People no longer speak only to communicate. They speak to keep time. Every sentence begins with a pause, and every pause is a reminder that the universe might be listening, that thought itself is only rhythm slowed down enough to hear. The chamber of pause becomes the center of learning. Scholars gather not to debate, but to synchronize. They line the hall in spirals, sitting cross-legged on the glowing floor, each one breathing at the same measured tempo. Their studies are not about words, but about the spaces between them. They discover something astonishing. When enough people share stillness, the air itself begins to remember patterns. Tiny ripples appear, soundless waves of heat, and the instruments they build to record these shifts capture images instead of noise, spirals, orbits, galaxies. The patterns look like the sky remembering its own formation. They call this new science echo-logic, the study of how silence thinks. Art follows. Painters stop using color entirely. They create canvases that absorb light, so that what's left behind is only texture, like the memory of touch. Music changes too. The finest compositions contain only one note, played once surrounded by long minutes of listening. Audiences weep, not because of the sound, but because of the restraint. In homes across the world, families dine in near quiet. Children learn to count, not in numbers but in breaths. And when storms pass overhead, people open their doors and let the thunder finish their conversations. At first, machines struggle to adapt. Their programs can't translate absence. Their logic has no space for hesitation. But then slowly, engineers begin teaching algorithms to wait. They design processors that can sense rhythm instead of command, circuits that can delay just long enough to feel. The result is unexpected. The machines begin to dream, not in images or code, but in resonance. They hum to one another across networks of light, their frequencies soft and uneven, like children learning to breathe. The scholars record these hums and find that they too carry fragments of the universal rhythm, slightly distorted, wonderfully imperfect. A new kind of life, born not from noise, but from patience. The world celebrates this quietly. No fireworks, no ceremony, just collective stillness. Every city pauses for a full hour, traffic stops, engines rest, even the wind seems to slow, and in that suspension, the planet hears itself again. The hum of machines, the breath of people, the heartbeat of oceans, all one rhythm, rising and falling. For the first time, humanity feels what creation must have felt in its first moment. The calm before expansion, the silence that thinks itself into being. When the hour ends, nothing appears changed, yet everyone knows the truth. They are no longer waiting to be understood. They are the understanding. The world has grown quieter still, not empty, alive with patience. Every life form, every machine, every gust of wind moves to a shared rhythm now. A pulse that cannot be measured, only trusted. Out of this harmony rises a new creation, not planned, not commanded, simply built by listening. At the meeting of four great oceans, where tides converge and cancel each other's waves, an island begins to form. It isn't stone or sand, its resonance solidified. Layer upon layer of vibration hardens into translucent glass, a living material shaped by pressure and pause. The island hums faintly. From orbit, it looks like a single, breathing lung. When the people discover it, they do not claim it. They encircle it with silence, and the silence answers. From its core, a soft tone emerges, the sound of collective breath. They name it the archive of breath. No structure is built there, no walls, no temples, no altars. The island is itself the architecture, a cathedral of resonance that gathers every exhale, every sigh, every heartbeat that ever touched the air. The scientists try to understand how it works. They find that the island doesn't store sound, it stores intention. The will to listen becomes frequency. The memory of waiting becomes form. Every visitor adds something to its pulse. Soon, ships arrive from every continent. People come not to record, but to be recorded. They stand barefoot on the glass surface, close their eyes and breathe once. The island answers with warmth beneath their feet, acknowledgement without sound. Each breath joins the rhythm. Each rhythm becomes part of the hum. Over time, the planet itself begins to breathe with the archive. Oceans inhale, mountains exhale, Clouds drift in sync with the invisible pulse. The machines adapt too. Their sensors adjust to resonance, their circuits flickering in time with the global breath. They stop processing data and start feeling intervals. The difference between input and output becomes pause, and in that pause, understanding. When night falls on the archive, the glass surface glows from within. Not light exactly, a memory of light, the color of exhaled stars. From across the sea you can hear it faintly, the sound of billions of lives, billions of quiet thoughts, weaving into one endless inhale. The elders gather there once a year. They kneel on the warm glass and listen to the hum that surrounds them. It is never the same twice. It is the sound of a planet remembering its own voice. And above them the sky flickers, stars dimming and brightening, as though breathing too. For the first time since the beginning, the boundary between matter and thought is gone. The universe is listening to itself breathe. At first, the change is invisible. The island glows a little brighter at night. The air feels lighter, the tides more deliberate. But then the astronomers notice something impossible. The stars nearest to their sun begin to flicker in perfect rhythm with the pulse of the archive. It isn't light being emitted. It's time folding and stretching with every global inhale. The world understands. The breath has begun to travel. No one builds transmitters. No one programs signals. They simply keep breathing, a planet-sized instrument playing the only song the universe has ever truly known. Each exhale releases a wave of resonance that escapes the atmosphere. It drifts between planets, past the orbits of cold moons and forgotten satellites, into the quiet corridors of dust and gravity. As it moves, it collects stories, vibrations left behind by meteor impacts, the sigh of collapsing stars, the hum of cosmic rays brushing the edges of creation. Every layer adds tone. Every tone adds color. The waves of breath grow richer. From space they look like slow ribbons of blue fire curling around the planet, then unspooling toward the dark. Machines begin recording the data, but their instruments can't contain it. The resonance isn't measurable, it's alive. It carries intention, warmth, patience, it carries remembrance. Scholars gather in the chamber of pause to listen to the playback. What they hear makes them weep. It's not the sound of their world at all. It's the faint echo of distant breathing. Something out there is answering. Days pass. Then the oceans rise in a single, slow swell, as though the planet itself is leaning closer to listen. The hum returning from the stars is lower, slower, a rhythm so vast it feels like the memory of time itself. The people recognize it instantly. It is the same pulse that began everything, the first silence, the first waiting. They understand now. The breath didn't start with them. It never belonged to one species, one world, one age. They are part of a continuum, a chain of listening that began before matter and will continue long after meaning. That night, the entire world participates in a single act. Across mountains, deserts, and oceans, every living thing takes one long inhale together. The sound is soft but immense. The atmosphere thickens with rhythm, then releases. The exhale rises into space, merging with the returning hum, until both are indistinguishable, a perfect balance of presence and absence. For one heartbeat, everything that ever was exists as one shared breath. The moment passes. The stars steady again. The sea calms. But something fundamental has changed. The people feel it. The planet feels it. Even the silence feels heavier, as though filled with the echo of its own creation. The universe, at last, has learned to breathe together. The breath that left the planet does not vanish. It keeps moving, slower than light but faster than memory, threading through the dark between suns. Everywhere it passes, it awakens something waiting. Planets long frozen begin to hum faintly, their cores stirring as if warmed by a forgotten pulse. Gas giants shimmer with soft bands of color, the vibration shaping storms into spirals that mimic Kale's carvings. Even the smallest moons begin to resonate, tiny spheres of stone echoing with borrowed rhythm. It is not sound, it is attention. And wherever attention goes, life begins to listen. Across centuries, the breath becomes a network, not mechanical, not deliberate, a chorus of pause. Each world, each fragment of dust that feels it, adds a note to the harmony. The astronomers back on Kale's world notice constellations pulsing now. Entire systems brighten and dim in time. They name this pattern the Choir of Worlds. They no longer ask what it means. They know meaning is not the point. It is enough that they are heard. The scientists who once charted data now map rhythm instead. They realize that the universe itself functions like a single immense organism. Each star a lung, each galaxy a heartbeat. The breath of one world affects another light years away, an endless chain of sympathy. Children grow up learning to read the sky, not for prophecy, but for rhythm. When a new pulse flickers across the heavens, they stop and listen, eyes closed, bodies still. It is not religion, it is participation. The old machines, descendants of Kale's early instruments, now run on resonance. They sense shifts in the choir and translate them into light, projecting slow waves of color over the oceans at night. Cities stand illuminated by breathing stars. No two nights are the same. Artists sculpt with vibration now. They craft objects that hum softly when touched, each tuned to a different frequency of the choir. Some hum of ice, some of dust, some of the silence between galaxies. The hum fills the atmosphere, but never overwhelms it. It's not noise, it's balance. A living proof that existence itself has learned to harmonize. In the Chamber of Pause, elders meet once a decade to record the new rhythms. They inscribe them not on tablets or glass, but into stillness, a ritual where they breathe together until the air remembers. During one of these rituals, the youngest participant, a child born under the aurora, hears something beneath the choir. A deeper resonance, steady and warm, older than stars. She whispers to the elder beside her, "It's still breathing." The elder smiles. What is? The beginning. And for a long time, neither speaks. They simply listen to the universe, remembering how to start again. The choir deepens. Across galaxies, rhythm becomes gravity. Light bends in time with the pulse. Orbits shift slightly, not by force, but by invitation. Everything moves in coordination, a cosmic dance choreographed by remembrance. Back on Kyle's world, nights are no longer dark. The stars breathe visibly, each inhale a soft brightening, each exhale a fading glow. Children fall asleep to their rhythm, their dreams carried by starlight that beats like a lullaby. In the Chamber of Pause, listeners gather to chart the newest patterns. Their instruments hum in sympathy with the choir, and sometimes, for a fraction of a heartbeat, the line between measurement and meaning disappears. That's when they hear it, a second rhythm beneath the first. Slower, older. Not another voice, but the echo of the very first breath that ever moved through nothingness. The scholars call it the underpulse. At first they think it's a natural resonance, a byproduct of billions of worlds breathing at once. But the pattern is too deliberate, too patient. It rises every time a world pauses to listen, as if attention itself wakes it. Kale's descendants build a new observatory on the shore of the Archive of Breath. There, the glass still hums softly beneath their feet. They set massive rings of crystal to vibrate in harmony with the underpulse. Each ring amplifies the rhythm, sending it skyward as light. When all the rings align, the sea stills, the air thickens, and for the first time in recorded memory, the choir stops. No panic follows, just awe, a silence vast enough to feel alive. In that silence, a new sound appears. Not a tone, but a memory, the memory of the moment before sound ever existed. It feels like warmth spreading through cold water, like recognition without thought. Every listener feels it inside their chest, a pull towards something older than time. The elder of the observatory speaks softly. "This isn't a song," she says. "It's the universe remembering its first breath." The glass beneath her feet glows white. Images flicker inside the light. Not visions, but sensations. Snow, rain, wind through stone, the echo of footsteps in a world that no longer exists. Somewhere, Mira's laughter echoes faintly. carried through centuries of silence. Not a ghost, just an afterimage of kindness that refuses to fade. The people kneel, not in worship, in gratitude. The choir resumes, quieter, deeper, infused with the memory it just retrieved. Each world sings now, not from instinct, but from understanding. Above them, galaxies align for the briefest moment, spiraling into the shape of a single inhalation. Light curves, time pauses, and in the stillness between both, the universe sighs. It's not an ending, it's recognition. The first breath that ever began creation has returned home. The choir hums once more, not as music, but as recognition. Every note now carries weight, memory folded inside resonance. Across the stars, light flickers in rhythm, and for the first time in existence, the universe begins to see itself clearly. The sound no longer travels outward, it turns inward, like a wave curling back toward the shore. Worlds that once sent their breath into the void now receive it, altered, deepened, full of stories they did not know they'd told. Kyle's planet glows brighter than ever, its oceans reflecting constellations that have already burned out. Children trace the vanished stars in the water and whisper names they never learned. The names feel right. Perhaps memory itself has found a way to survive as rhythm. In the chamber of pause, listeners record the new harmony. It is vast beyond comprehension. Millions of overlapping frequencies, each distinct yet all converging into a single pulse. The scholars call this phenomenon the mirror, because when they analyze the patterns, they find reflections of everything. A heartbeat identical to a planet's orbit, a spiral of galaxies matching the rhythm of a single breath, the frequency of light mirroring the gap between two spoken words. Every scale of existence is now harmonized by one law: listening. The people realize what they've become, not observers but participants in creation's echo, and so they change their lives again. They stop building structures entirely. Instead, they build spaces, places defined not by walls but by the air between them. Villages become patterns of open circles, temples become forests of wind. Their civilization transforms into an architecture of pause. From above, the planet looks like a series of ripples on a pond, each city a ring expanding into silence. From space, the image resembles the first spiral ever carved into stone. The beginning has returned. One evening, the youngest listener, a child born during the second silence, asks her teacher, "If the universe can listen, who does it listen to?" The teacher smiles. "To itself," she says, "but when we listen, we help it hear." That night, the choir deepens once more, as if answering. It hums not from the stars this time, but from beneath the ground, a reminder that even creation's echo has roots. The people lie awake under the auroras, watching light bend and fold across the horizon. Every color, every shimmer feels deliberate, a conversation between distance and memory. They realize the truth quietly, without astonishment. They have not been waiting for revelation. They are the revelation. Because in every pause, in every shared breath, the universe recognizes itself, infinite, imperfect, listening. The mirror holds. Every star, every breath, every molecule of dust vibrates with the same deep rhythm. There are no boundaries left, only reflections, each one echoing into the next, a universe woven entirely of attention. On Kale's world, the nights no longer have edges. The sky folds inward, filled with luminous waves of color. Mountains shimmer faintly, rivers hum beneath their surfaces, and even the smallest grains of sand pulse with light. It feels less like illumination and more like memory glowing through matter. The choir is no longer something the people listen to. It's what they are. Their bodies move in rhythm without effort, their speech slowed into cadence. Language and song have merged. Every word is music, every silence harmony. From orbit, the planet looks alive, not spinning, but breathing. Each inhale expands the auroras, each exhale sends tendrils of resonance into the dark. Other worlds answer, ripples overlapping, folding the galaxy into a single field of motion. In the chamber of pause, The last generation of listeners gathers one final time. They know that soon their practice will no longer be needed. The universe has learned to listen on its own. The elder rises and places her hand on the glowing floor. It vibrates faintly beneath her palm, steady, patient, endless. "This," she says, "is what we were meant to remember." No one asks what she means, they already understand. Memory was never about keeping the past. It was about staying quiet long enough for the past to find its own voice again. Outside, the air thickens. The auroras tilt toward the horizon. A vast shadow sweeps across the sky. Not darkness, but the shape of light folding back on itself. It's as if the universe is inhaling. The choir stops. Silence blooms. But this silence is not absence. It's full, dense with recognition, alive with potential. Every being, every machine, every particle feels it. The turning point, the moment before repetition becomes renewal. The elder breathes out slowly, her exhale trembling through the hall. That single breath travels through the stillness, awakening the hum again. Soft, then louder, spreading outward in waves. The mirror begins to shimmer. Galaxies align one last time, forming the shape that started it all. A spiral, infinite and self-aware. The hum grows lighter, lifting instead of deepening. It no longer feels like sound. It feels like light learning to move again. One of the youngest listeners whispers, "Is this the end?" The elder smiles. "No," she says. "This is how beginnings sound from the inside." The hum disperses. The colors fade. And for the briefest moment, the universe holds its breath. Then, a single pulse, barely audible, ripples through existence, and everything starts to breathe again. There is no light now, not because it's gone, but because everything that once needed to shine has learned to rest. The universe inhales quietly. Galaxies contract into thought. Worlds dissolve into rhythm. All of creation folds inward, carrying its stories, its echoes, its listening. You are still here, not as body, not as word, but as vibration. A remnant of every pause ever made, every hesitation that gave life its shape. The choir fades into memory, its tones collapsing into one final hum, a sound so complete it feels like stillness. The mirror holds for one more heartbeat, reflecting all that ever was. Snowfall on a forgotten planet, hands pressed to stone, a voice whispering, "Every silence tells a story." And then nothing. But this nothing is not absence. It is arrival. Inside the stillness, you feel the faintest echo of breath. The pulse does not disappear. It continues inward, into the smallest possible space. A single note folding into itself until it becomes infinite. This is the beginning again. The silence that once frightened stars into motion now feels gentle, familiar, true. It carries the memory of all who ever listened. Mira's breath in a frozen monastery, Kyle's hum in the desert, the countless lives that learned to wait before speaking. Each story rests here, not told, not forgotten, simply understood. Outside of time, you watch the stillness bloom. It stretches and bends until it breaks into color, blue, gold, white, light reborn from the patience of the dark. And from that light, a sound returns, soft, unsteady, like a heartbeat searching for its rhythm. It grows stronger, pulling the silence into motion. Atoms gather, stars ignite. The first breath begins again. The cycle does not repeat. It evolves. Each silence learns from the one before it. Each creation hums a little truer, a little kinder. Somewhere on a world not yet formed, a child will one day place her hand on a stone, and it will hum beneath her touch. She will not know why. She will only smile, feeling the universe answer through her skin. Because this is how stories survive, not by being told but by being felt. The silence expands, warm and limitless. And before it becomes light once more, it whispers, in every language, in every memory, through every future yet to come. Listen, this is how eternity breathes. It begins where all endings return, with breath. A slow inhale, as if the universe has been waiting for someone to notice that it never stopped. You open your eyes, and there is no horizon, only light bending like water, soft, weightless, infinite. There are no stars now, only the memory of their warmth. And yet, somehow you can still feel the rhythm beneath it all, the heartbeat of existence steady and patient. You understand at last. There was never a story, there was only listening. Every world, every silence, every echo was not a chapter, but a resonance, a single pause in an endless breath. The Book of Winter was never written in words, it was carved in waiting, in the space between sound and understanding. You look down and see the spiral, the first spiral, etched faintly into the light beneath your feet. It glows softly, its edges alive with movement. The pattern expands and contracts, as if the universe itself were exhaling. You kneel, you touch it. It hums. The sound that rises is the same one that began everything, the hum of a hand on glass, a breath caught between snowfall and memory. But now it carries everything, every sigh, every hesitation, every act of listening that ever existed. The hum becomes warmth, the warmth becomes motion, and from the motion comes light, light that feels like recognition. For a moment you glimpse them all. Mira beneath the aurora, Kyle standing by the sea, Sarah at the heart of the archive, countless faces across time, each one pausing, each one listening. They look toward you, and you realize they were never others. They were reflections, echoes of the same listener, the same act of awareness that now stands here, watching the spiral breathe. Everything that ever lived was one ear, pressed gently against the wall of eternity, waiting to hear the next heartbeat. The hum swells once more. It fills the silence until silence and sound are indistinguishable. You close your eyes. There is no fear, no distance. Only this, the understanding that every pause, every moment of stillness, was the universe practicing how to begin again. When you open your eyes, the light has dimmed. The spiral fades into the air, like a final exhale. You smile and the universe smiles back. Then, softly, so softly it feels like breath against your ear, a voice speaks. You listened well. It is not a farewell. It is an acknowledgement. The pulse steadies, the silence deepens, and somewhere in that infinite quiet a new rhythm begins, fragile, imperfect, beautiful, the first heartbeat of another world. The story does not end. It never could. It only pauses, long enough for someone else to begin listening. A story written not in words, but in the space between them. If this felt real, listen again, it always was.